there will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Increasing the block size to 32 megabytes right now. What would be the top 5 arguments that would get hurled against me?
Oh, that's a good one.
There are a few that the big blockers got right.
Ching, like all these coins splash into the wallets of all the winners. I love that.
There's a new threat out there. It's crypto.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 123, BTC Conference and BCH vibes, featuring Kallisti and Steve Thurmond. Today is Monday, the 29th of July, 2024. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producer, and our guests today have both been on the show before, but they are making a repeat appearance here as they attended the BTC conference in Nashville, which was just the other day, right? It was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. What were the exact dates? Do you remember? 24th to the 26th or something?
Yeah, anyway. Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we'll be getting into them, all that with them in just a moment. But before we get on to the conference, let's just start with the latest in BCH. Kallisti, how you been doing? What's the latest with you and BCH?
Life's been pretty good. I've been having a pretty enjoyable summer, cranking out some new stuff for Selene, really started to get that stat stuff out, finally. It's been a minute. And just continuing to just grind it out. We want to make it the best wallet ever, so that's what we're doing.
Okay, been plenty busy with that. Steve, what's the latest on your end?
Not much. I'm still buzzing from this past weekend. It was a really good experience going up there. So glad that Kallisti actually made the effort to come down. I know he was hesitant, had cold feet there at the beginning, so I'm glad he made it down. It was really cool hanging with him. And yeah, I mean, nothing really new on my front, just still grinding in the TradFi world. And we can get into some of the, I guess, the different project stuff and areas that I'm sticking my toe in. But things are well, just still on a slow high, if you will, from the last few days. So.
No, that's good to hear. I'm really glad you guys had a good experience. Well, let's start with the price, as we always do. BCH having a fantastic week in the wake of the conference, actually. USD $444.08 will buy you 100 megasats, so we're way up there. One BTC sat will buy only 150.5 BCH sats, so we're also way up there. And one Ethereum will get you just 745 megasats, so we're also way up there. This has moved BCH up to rank 14 on the coin market caps, 8.76 billion ahead of Chainlink at number 15 and behind Shiba Inu at rank 13. Now, I love to see this because it was my prediction that after we last popped up to number 12, you remember we made that run from like 27th or whatever it was up to number 12, and then we slid back down a bit. It was like nearly out of the top 20, and then we've been grinding our way back up. And I said, look, what'll happen is we'll slowly grind our way up, and then maybe as we're getting into the top 10, boom, the hype will start again. So that's what I'm feeling. I feel like we're slowly and surely just eking out a few edges and moving up a spot here or there, and a really good sign for BCH. That's my take. Kallisti, what do you think on the markets?
I really like to think that us being at the conference had an impact on this. We're seeing BTC down, BCH up. Love to see that, right? Obviously, I can't personally take credit. Yeah. Who knows? We really don't. I mean, there was a lot of publicity that we did get in front of a lot of people who are in Bitcoin, like balls deep, right? So, not like with the Wavlake board, we can talk about that later, but nobody touched it for the entire day too. It was there from morning to night until they overwrote everything for day 3. So
multiple entries, by the way.
Mm-hmm. We have like 70% of the board.
Yeah,
That's some good representation. Steve, what do you make of the price action?
So my biggest fear going up this past weekend was I'm going to hand out all these cash stamps, and then we're going to have a massive dip. So each one of them had $5 on it. And I'm like, oh great, they're going to finally scan these QR codes and have $4.50 or less. But it was really nice seeing that little spike up here over the last 48 hours. So upward direction up and to the right is always a good thing. So cannot complain.
Well, maybe that's a learning point for later. Maybe it's a bit of a psychological hack. Instead, next time, load it with $6 and write $5, and then even if the price goes down, they can still get a win. And if it goes up even further, so you can. It's all about expectation management.
Exactly. We'll get into some of the nuances there about that tool we're creating, but that's a great idea.
We could pass out any hedge tokens on a stamp.
Yes, exactly. That too. This is the way my mind works. Okay, like not how can we actually make something better, but how can we make it look a little bit better? Like those memes of the camera. Like why don't we just point the camera in the right direction? But I'm actually terrible at Instagram and like filters and all that shit. So I wonder why. That's the first thing my mind runs to. But
perception is everything for sure.
Yes, perception is reality. Exactly. And we all live in a subjective reality. I was arguing with somebody on Twitter about that recently. Somebody's not quite there when they say, no, there's only one reality. And you're like, I don't know so much, man. If you're too fixed on the fact that there's only one reality, you're probably just not seeing enough of everyone else's perspective, is what I'd say. But okay. Tell you what is reality, and I wanted to start with this before we got into the BTC conference, is the BCH community has made history. For the first time ever, I found evidence, which I uncovered, that the BTC community are talking internally about BCH as something worth watching and emulating. Now, we've been highlighting that on the show for quite a while. Obviously, with the Taproot Wizards, they were like, oh God, they've got OpCat and blah, blah, blah. And then also on episode 121, we were talking about people coming in to watch, listen to the show and figuring out that the BCH community has got the jump on them. But I've got the smoking gun, which came from a really excellent video by Bitcoin Mechanic, who was talking about the fact that Bitcoin Core has been infiltrated and their whole kind of system there is pretty screwed up. And so kind of the Bcashes were right in that sense. He didn't actually say the Bcashes were right, but we were. And then he sort of had various explanations of what he thinks needs to be changed and where on the timeline things went wrong. But that wasn't the point. The point was in the comments section. So I'm just going to read. You've got these two people talking in the comments here. So at No Any O Business 7462 said, quote, I was yelling into the void for dynamic block size based on a median over time, just like Monero has been running forever, and quickly realized there were two infiltrated camps, ignoring everything else besides trying to force hate onto each other. There was zero attempt to actually solve the problem, and those that did were immediately attacked. I have no doubt the entire block, in quotes, discussion was a psyop, end quote. And then somebody else wrote back to him, and then somebody else wrote back to that, who said at Y4550, and this is the key quote here, said, quote, at Nerd to Ninja, I don't know about Monero, but the dynamic block size proposal for Bcash had limits on how fast block sizes could be increased, similar to how difficulty adjustments have limits on how fast it can change. I'm not a Bcasher, but I don't think their camp is full of idiots either. They're a good system to watch evolve since their roots come from the same consensus rules, and we can look at the impact of certain changes to influence developments on core. End quote. So I had to read that a couple of times, but here we're over the bridge. This has never, ever happened before. Never before have the BTC community taken the BCH community seriously as somebody who not only were like basically just dismissed as scammers, right? So we've gone from scammers, people that are illegitimate, to people that maybe have a legitimate project, but we just don't agree with them, to people who not only have a legitimate project, but they've made some changes that are worth looking into. And then they've made actually some good changes that we should probably take very seriously, because we might need to do something like that. Now, this is a huge change in human history, because never before did the BTC side take the BCH side seriously, and also never before did the BCH side take the BSV side seriously in their split, or the BCH side take the eCash, the XCC side, seriously. So in all three cases, the minority community was dismissed as irrelevant and stupid, idiotic scammers, that we didn't need them anyway. But for the first time ever, we now have a reversal where a minority community has convinced a majority community that they had a valid point, and that essentially makes a flippening inevitable. Obviously, given that nothing else changes, but it's very clear that the progression of ideas, the sort of intellectual capitulation, has happened from BTC to BCH. And at this point, it's just a matter of the rest of the BTC community catching up, that they're being outperformed by BCH. And obviously that line of thinking eventually leads to them defecting and switching sides. And that will create a snowball like we've talked about before on this show. Now, I say that has changed human political history, because not only has it changed Bitcoin history, it is also, for the first time ever in human history, as far as I'm aware, proven the viability of a non-violent political governance in this way. Like Balaji Srinivasan is always talking about the network state, and cryptocurrencies are essentially the first, maybe not the first, but they're prominent modern examples of this idea of a non-national state. So a kind of virtual digital network state, and BTC and BCH is a great example. And if BCH can perform a flippening, then that will have proven that a small minority can non-violently secede and then bypass their previous outdated government, in quotation marks, such as it was, or social structure. And we're going to see that basically at this point. But this is the first time that there's proven viable that you can have a non-violent political system which works. Because if it was just the case that the minority could never win, then you don't have any sort of transition of power mechanic between different groups of people, and it's still essentially just a regime, right? So I think this moment, or possibly the flippening, will be looked back on in history as proof that humans can have non-violent political governance at scale through virtual decentralized communities. And I'm amazed. It's fantastic. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's great. I think little by little, then all at once, and that was kind of the sentiment. I was very nervous going up to Nashville, just didn't know how we would be received. And then I remembered we're dealing with 20,000 keyboard warriors. These people, they're not going to go to blows. And we didn't go to karate combat, so which I think was there at the same time. But it was. I was also nervous because I'm a terrible interviewer. I just I'm not comfortable in front of the camera. I'm much more comfortable behind it. But it was actually refreshing to get some feedback from some maxis there and be able to talk to different people. I think a few of the standout people that we approached was we went up to the iron mining operation, which are massive. They just told me, I was talking to the head of operations. He's the guy that builds out these massive rooms and maintains kind of the operation side of things. They just purchased 45,000 S21 miners to the tune of $200 million, and they're about to open up a new operation. He couldn't say where, but they're still scouting land and all of that. and I got a copy of Hijacking Bitcoin into his hand. So we were able to actually talk. I gave him a cash stamp, and he's the grunt behind the scenes actually building this stuff out. And I don't know how much he actually knows about the tech, but he was very receptive. If nothing else, he was patronizing me for the 10 minutes or so that we spoke. But yeah, I think people that think critically to this very post you pointed out, people that think critically at some point, if they're looking at this objectively and they're seeing what's happening, especially in that environment where we were in, where you're surrounded by politicians and megacorps, this is not the Bitcoin that the white paper wrote about. And it certainly wasn't the Bitcoin just even 5-7 years ago. It's completely shifted. And not to be cliche, but it has absolutely been hijacked. So seeing people like this in this post gives me hope, I guess, in that regard, that people are actually looking at this critically and thinking about the issue and the problem and how BTC has been crippled and can no longer fulfill that vision that was outlined in the white paper. So good stuff.
Kallisti?
Yeah, I saw a post on Twitter, I think just last night, that had some millions of impressions that said something along the lines of the crypto bro hacktivism, anarchist culture that existed in, say, like the early 2010s is completely gone now. And that hurts me personally because I'm one of those people, right? And that's why I'm in BCH, and we're those people in BCH and in Monero. So to be immersed in that environment of, surrounded by politicians and megacorps and everything, and to know that there are still people who have that glimmer of hope, and then to know further that we're actually executing on it every single day and actually making progress, more importantly, that's a really big deal to me. I mean, it's what drives me every day. What makes me want to continue, existing on this planet, because a lot of stuff is really fucked up. And if there's actually no recourse for that, what's the point, right? So I think there is a point.
Yeah, absolutely. Do either of you have any, like, for me, this, and maybe also seeing it up close, seems to have really changed your perception on this issue, or at least it's heavily influencing your thinking right now. But I think that this is just most incredible as a psychological phenomenon, right? How do you get in a tribal dynamics, how do you get, because what's not important here is that somebody said that BCH had some good ideas. What matters is that it's a BTC guy talking to another BTC guy in a BTC space saying, I'm not a Bcasher, but they've got some good ideas, right? That is a world of difference away from where we started. And it's just the aggregate result of the BCH community getting better and better at interacting with the BTC community directly, and then also getting better at interacting with themselves and therefore producing a better coin, a better project with a lot of good ideas, right? So that then eventually reality speaks louder than anything and the dialogue changes. So I'm fascinated by that, like, especially in the context of there's been cases where we've had to, well, not had to, but people have gone to BTC spaces to try and have those discussions, right? We did it in the What Bitcoin Did Telegram and various other places. There's obviously been battles on Twitter and Reddit and, Twitter spaces and so forth, for many, many years. But at a certain point, you can't win while you're there. You have to just open the door and then leave and let them talk amongst each other and come to the conclusion that, maybe you're right. Because obviously when you're there, you're the one saying you're right. But when you're not there and they're saying you're right, that's game over, right?
Yeah, I always use the quip, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. They've got to come to this realization on their own. And if they have any brain cells in their head and look at this objectively, I don't see any other conclusion they can come to.
When I go to my local BTC meetup, it's really a testament to that. I've been going for at least 2 years now. I'm in their Telegram every other day, right? We know each other. We talk to each other. I get my Selene shirts from one of those guys, right? So you still have the very laser eye maximalist people who come to these meetings. But I know that they're listening. Because, well, first off, like you said, reality just kind of trumps everything. I keep showing up and I'm still here, right? So, you would have thought that BCH would have been like obliterated off the face of the planet because look at this price chart, right? Well, nope, still people building, still people actually, making their income and able to actually participate in this economy, right? So, we can shift the goalpost a little bit. It's a free market. Or not the goalpost, sorry, the Overton window, I guess that's what that would actually be. So, I know for a fact that they're thinking about us because in recent history, let's say especially like beginning of this year, I have the guy who's actually running this meetup having to actually acknowledge that 2017 happened, acknowledge that other blockchains exist, and acknowledge in particular that there was the chain split in Bitcoin, because we have newcomers coming in who are coming from other chains like Solana or who came in through ordinals, and they have these questions like, what happened? Where did that come from? And even though they're not super duper strict on BTC only, but that is like really something that drives that group, is that they want to be Bitcoin only, and Bitcoin to them is BTC. I can understand the Bitcoin only philosophy, like the whole Bitcoin not crypto thing, but that's kind of a side point. The main point is like they are talking about us. They are actually having to cover for that fact that we do exist, and I think that that's pretty monumental.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Reality speaks louder than anything, and certainly persistence is paying off. And I do like that. That's also sort of underrated about, people who say, oh, well, BCH should rebrand or something. They don't kind of understand really the power that it has to even just be there. The same name, the same ticker symbol, the logo got switched from over time organically. It wasn't anybody's decision, any individual's decision, from orange to green. So it's now a stronger contrast, which I quite like. But just being there, BCH is a scam, BCH is a scam. And I made that meme, RIP BCH, with the gravestone, and then 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, up to 2022 to highlight like every year people are just saying it's dead, it's dead, it's dead. But soon enough, you kind of say it's dead for years and years and years. If people are still talking about it, people get the message it's not dead. What's happening here? And they no longer trust whoever was telling them it was dead, or at the very least they go looking for a second opinion. And somebody said, oh, we need to update this meme for 2023, 2024. I said, no, you don't. It's more powerful now if you don't update it, because it ends in 2022. It's like this meme is already 2 years old at this point, and that's obvious because the following years aren't there, and that will only get more powerful over time. So adding that kind of weight of history is a super important thing for the community to maintain, and I'm not surprised that it's paying off.
It kind of makes me wonder too, us being at that conference. I mean, like I said on the price tab, it's like, did we actually do something? In some ways it feels like we did, but we also just kind of did our own thing at the same time. Yeah, Steve did a bunch of interviews, and I walked around and posted on Twitter, I guess, and just shook hands with people, right? So it doesn't feel like much, but I just know that being there and people being able to see that we exist matters in some way.
Yeah, it only takes, one pebble to set off an avalanche, right? Or one snowflake, I guess, to set off an avalanche. Okay, so let's talk about the conference then. Obviously, I'm going to get each of your takes, but I will start with my experience. Obviously, was watching a little bit of it online. I didn't even watch too many of the talks. I watched a little bit of Gladstein talking. I watched most of the Donald Trump stuff. But to be honest, I was keeping an eye out for what the reactions were, and then that usually zeroes you in on where the signal is, what everybody's kind of talking about. And maybe it's just because I don't follow the BTC stuff as closely anymore. But it seemed honestly pretty boring. It seemed basically driven by TradFi and politicians. There was a series of announcements from politicians. Trump said that he would put some sort of seized BTC that they had into some kind of national reserve. RFK Jr. says he's put most of his wealth into BTC, and if he was elected, he would buy 550 BTC per day until the US government had 4 million BTC, which he had chosen to, I think, approximate how much of the gold supply that they have. They have about 19% of the gold supply. And I mean, so many things about this are completely unrealistic, from the fact that buying 4 million BTC is probably impossible, let alone the fact that there's definitely not 21 million BTC circulating. Anyway, Senator Lummis also introduced a bill proposed a bill to buy 1 million Bitcoin. So there was a lot of political grandstanding about holding and buying Bitcoin, but that didn't really seem to surprise anyone or even be that well received because the price didn't really pump that much. So I don't know, nothing that came out of this was surprising or interesting to me. They did not stream the open source stage, so there was potentially some more technical or relevant chat going on there. But to be honest, I would be surprised if there was anything that exciting going on there too, because as we know, BTC Dev has been stalled for a decade basically. But that was from the window perspective, from the computer screen perspective. How was it on the ground? Walk me through it.
All right. So I was there on day one. So I guess I'll start off with my experience. So,
firstly, you didn't want to go.
Exactly. That was what I was just going to say, right? The whole reason that I didn't even want to go was because from the get, it just looked like it was going to be all TradFi and politics bullshit. So I'm like, well, I don't know. Is there going to be even anything interesting for me to see? Like, the way that I approached it on Twitter is like, I'm pretty unplugged from BTC culture at this point. Like, I kind of followed in your footsteps. I'm like, I'm just going to unfollow all these people. Like, I don't care, actually. The only interaction that I have with the BTC community is through my local community, which is significantly more meaningful to me. So I just didn't even want to go in the first place. But then I was like, between you and like my girlfriend and some other people kind of talked me into it. I was like, okay, yeah, let's go. I mean, why not? It's a good opportunity. Worst case, I'll get to just go have some fun in Nashville for a couple of days, whatever. So went down. Ultimately glad that I did. I mean, it was a great time. When I got there, I got into the venue at about 9 a.m. on the first day. The energy was pretty good. Like, everyone seemed pretty happy to be there. Nashville was thriving.
That was industry day, right? Thursday was industry, right? Okay.
Yep, that was industry day. So it was only people who had the industry pass, and that included open source. Security was much, much looser that day. I was actually able to walk around freely. It was great. People were in the hallways, networking, hanging out. There were some people who weren't industry who were there who were just, I guess, there to hang out in the hallways, which no worries about that, right? Have fun. In the expo room, the first thing that stuck out to me was that about half of the entire room was just dedicated to mining stuff. And there was some pretty cool stuff over there. Like, one of the first things that I saw was what they called the Kardashev tunnel. That's like almost right when you walk in, and Steve and I have a picture in front of it. It looks pretty neat. You have like this tunnel, and the whole tunnel is screens, and it's playing like all of this like space themed stuff. It looks like you're inside a spaceship. It looks like you're flying around a galaxy. It's really cool. And then seeing like the big mining infrastructure, like the shipping crates basically that they use, and like the power structures. Like, oh yeah, this is actually an industry, and that's really cool to me because that's Bitcoin. That's not just BTC. That's Bitcoin. So that's all of us, BSV, XEC even. That industry could pivot even to freaking Digibyte because it's SHA-256, right? So I do have like a periphery interest in like the mining and energy stuff. That's one of the things that draws me to Bitcoin in particular is kind of the implications on how there's an incentive to develop better energy technology in order to profit on mining. I think that's a really great intersection that is just yet another one of those things that makes Bitcoin humanity changing, right? It's not just the economic aspect, but, plug into that on a physical way. So then the other 50% of the room, I guess we'll divide that up into art, layer 2, and TradFi. That's the way I would look at it, maybe even roughly a third of each. So the art stuff would be probably the next coolest thing to me. That's the next thing I really sought out to look at. It's in the back of the room. There were some really great art installations. I took some pictures. You should look through the Megathon on Twitter. Saw some Rick Pepe, saw John McAfee, and there was one booth in particular that stood out to me called Essence of Bitcoin, where they used some wood and then they used electricity through some process that I can't remember the actual name of, where they made it look like there was lightning that had like shot across this wood. They called them lightning channels. It was really cute. And then they would like laminate it and like put like these gems and like glass and stuff, and it was like some really actually good art. And if I had a little more like festival money, maybe I would have picked up a piece, but I wasn't really trying to pay like $400 for an art piece. It wasn't in my budget. So
just real quick, it's actually pretty easy to do that yourself, but you're working with incredibly high voltage, so it's dangerous. You've got to work with like a microwave transformer.
Oh, do you know what it's called? Because I can't remember. It was like fractal something burning. I don't know.
Give me 2 minutes. Actually, that sounds right. I'll do a search for it.
But I don't remember what the second word was. So that was really cool. There were people selling jerseys, T-shirts. The guys who made like that Tuttle Twins short were there. There was the Free Ross booth, of course. So yeah, all the art stuff was like really cool. I did ask the Essence of Bitcoin people if they accepted Bitcoin. They did say yes. They would have accepted Bitcoin over Moon Wallet. And so that's how I ended up doing Moon Wallet with the Wavlake thing. So I'll talk about that later. I asked them if they would take BCH. They said no. I showed them Selene though. I actually didn't get with any of the other vendors to ask the same questions because there wasn't actually any other merchandise that I was interested in. I did end up at Peter McCormick's booth later that day, and he was there. He didn't have his tag on. He was trying to be incognito, but I recognized him. Actually, he started talking to me first, which I thought was weird. Like it was just a very awkward interaction because I like walked up, I'm like by his booth, and he like makes eye contact with me and says like, "Hey man," like as if like he knows who I am, like as if we're friends. I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" I didn't think I would ever meet like Peter McCormick in the flesh, and he's just like, "Yeah," and it's like an awkward silence. And I'm like, "Wait, do you like know me or something?" And he's like, "Should I?" And I'm like, "No, I guess because I'm not like that big or anything, but maybe you've heard of me, or maybe you've heard of my wallet, or maybe you've heard of the podcast." And he's like, "Oh, you're a Bcasher." I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, okay." Well, wasn't so interested in talking to me after that, but his merch guy was heckling me again a little bit, and let's sell you a hoodie, and we bantered a little bit, me and the merch guy. So that was kind of cute, but yeah, it was just such an awkward interaction. So then let's see, the Wavlake board I think is probably my favorite part of the conference overall. And it was a really cool installation. I do want to give shout outs to the Wavlake guy because it's cool tech, and he was being a good sport when I was trying to get your song on. It's just unfortunately he said no, and I'll respect that.
So just explain it, for people who hadn't seen like the photo. What physically did it actually look like and do?
Okay, so this thing, it's a dome. You can sit under it. There's couches under it. There's like 4 couches. So imagine, a room the size of like an apartment living room under this dome. The dome had a moon on top of it, like on a screen. And then it was hollowed out underneath. So then in the middle of this thing was a giant like cube. And on each side of the cube, there was a screen. So one side would show the name of whatever song was playing in this dome. And Wavlake is like a community music publishing site where you can tip the artist in sats by publishing on Wavlake. So whenever you scan the QR code that's showing what's the now playing, you would be sending that money directly to that artist. So that's really cool. And then on one of the other sides of the cube, it would have a board with messages. So you could post a message with every donation. And it would have like about a dozen slots for messages. I thought originally that it was a most recent history, but it's actually a leaderboard for who has tipped the most sats. So as soon as I figured that out, I took advantage of it. On day one, when I was first scoping this thing out, I was like, "Oh, cool, let's check it out." I just scanned the QR just with my, bog standard Android QR scanner just to see what it was, and it auto-opened Cash App for me because I have Cash App on my phone. I was like, "Oh, okay." It gave me an error right away, but Cash App does support Lightning allegedly. Just you need to KYC for it, so I don't have that enabled on my Cash App. So I was like, okay, well, that was actually for the audience who might have been paying really close attention to my thread, and I said take 2 was the eNuts wallet, take 1 was Cash App, technically. So just to clear up that discrepancy before someone tries to get me on it. You know how people are pedantic. Anyway, so let's see. I was talking to BTC Canary, who has been a really great person to just chat about this stuff with recently. He suggested the eNuts wallet, which is a beta Fedimint wallet. I had an issue with that because it doesn't support Bolt 12. He kind of diagnosed that for me. He's like, "Oh, yeah, well, it's Bolt 12. We just don't support that." All right, so then that's when I went to the Essence of Bitcoin people, asked what they use. They said Moon. So I tried Moon. And I was interested to hear that they use Moon because now this is a real-world case. People who are plugged into Twitter know that Bitcoin community has kind of been anti-moon within like the past year or two, because it's not technically Lightning. It uses something called a submarine swap. It sometimes causes unexpected on-chain fees, and the UX is great because it obfuscates all of these things, but it's not real Lightning. So, what are we going to do with that? So again, that guy that was standing at the exhibit, the Wavlake exhibit, when I first got there and was kind of scoping it out, he told me, okay, well, he would have used Wallet of Satoshi or Phoenix. And of course, in the US, we straight up just don't have access to Wallet of Satoshi. You have to use a VPN and geospoof yourself in order to use it. And then Phoenix, I did find out a loophole to get it on Google Play, and hopefully they don't patch that loophole, but you can just go directly to their website and click on Google Play and then get it off Google Play. So cool, I didn't have to jump hoops for that one. Turns out Phoenix does still work swimmingly for this use case. I have to say it was as smooth as Selene, other than the onboarding experience where you have to pay a fee in order to receive money. So I'm jumping a little ahead of myself because take 3 was with Aqua Wallet. I had a pretty solid 20-minute conversation with the Blockstream booth. There were 2 guys there. I followed them on Twitter. Shout out to you guys if you're watching. They were very kind, cordial. We talked tech, we talked shop. It was great. I learned that honestly, a lot of the people that I personally consider Blockstream opposition actually don't work for Blockstream anymore, except for Adam. So that's pretty interesting. They said they kind of still talk crap about BCH in-house a little bit, but it's not like they said there's still that toxicity there, built into the company, but individual employees aren't necessarily like that. And I've also had that kind of experience as a sidebar with Bitcoin Magazine. It's just individual people that they're just getting a check. So, that's cool. But yeah, I would say the Wavlake thing was probably my favorite thing.
So you put a bunch of BCH messages up on that board, and then I also wanted to get my song Disloyal on there because you could sort of pick the artist. So I uploaded Disloyal, the song that starts every episode of this show, onto their service, and then submitted that. But then apparently the guy wouldn't let that be allowed as one of the rotating options in the playlist because classic BTC community censorship and scared of the truth, freedom and markets, which is the market demand was there, but that was completely out the window. So hypocritical once again, but if he was a cool guy in person. Yeah, the market has spoken. You paid the sats to get on the board, and then you couldn't pick your own song. So the market apparently was not speaking enough to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was a nice thing too because I did get to try out a couple different Lightning wallets. There's actually a couple more I want to try. My local community recommended Mutiny, and I didn't get far enough to actually try that. But when I went back home to try it out, it seemed kind of cool, so it might have worked. I'll have to give that a fair shot. Find a Bolt 12 somewhere, maybe on Nostr or something. I don't know. But one of the UX issues that I really ran into, other than the spend money to get money onboarding experience, is that you also can't simply just post a QR code and just receive sats. I actually have to generate an invoice that specifies an amount to receive every single time. And that was really annoying because at this point I had tried out 2 different Lightning wallets, and then I was trying to get it onto my Phoenix wallet at the end of the day. And so I had to keep going back and forth between my wallets to guesstimate the fee that it was going to cost to get that. And so now I have some dust, unfortunately, because I can't just max send. But also it was kind of nice to be able to get those sats for free. I didn't have to actually buy any BTC. I ended up buying $10 extra so that I could get up on the board because I spammed a lot of Bitcoin Cash as the real Bitcoin and watch the Bitcoin Cash podcast, Exit the Matrix, and read Hijacking Bitcoin, and watch the Who Killed Bitcoin documentary. I got all sorts of messages. BTC Canary also decoded the original invoice that I sent him off my video and then put his own little cashies were right F Blockstream, but it censored the F word. But that was really cute.
Was he the one that sent you the BTC for that board? Was it BTC
he sent
Canary?
me some to try out eNuts, yeah. Oh. That was him.
Cool.
Shout out. All right, yes. So that was the Wavlake board. Steve, how did you find day one?
So we showed up on, we did get there Thursday evening, but we just focused on doing that roundtable discussion before the conference. I didn't have an industry pass. I didn't buy an industry pass. So day 2, we got there. Our main focus going up there was to get some interviews, interact with people, proselytize for BCH. we very quickly found that this is a much harder, in-depth, nuanced conversation that you're not going to convert somebody in a 1 or 2 minutes, and that doesn't make great for just one-on-one quick interview type styling. So we abandoned the challenging kind of angle there and said, okay, we're at a BTC conference. We've got to read the room essentially, and just focused our efforts then on making more of a highlight reel with Carl is in the middle of editing this now, so should have it done here by the end of the week, but mainly just highlighting the conference in general, trying to interact with people. I did get some stuff on camera about talking about the difference between BTC and Bitcoin Cash that hopefully will be fitting or work for the highlight reels. So we're not sure which direction we're going to go with it yet. So all that to say is I didn't actually get to catch any of the speakers because we were just running around the place most of the time. We did catch one at the very last minute, and I think might have been one of our best snags is last minute we caught Preston Pish and Mike Benz. The very last speakers at the very last day, and that's when we were able to put that copy of Hijacking Bitcoin in Mike Ben's hand. He said, "Oh, I'm in the middle of listening to this in audio," and I said, "Would you like a physical copy?" And he said, "Sure." And so I gave him that with a cash stamp in the back cover jacket. And then I'm pretty sure I didn't see who you handed the book to, Kallisti, but I'm pretty sure you gave it to Preston Pish. Was it the other? You said the other speaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was Preston, and then that pic shows up of it in the garbage can, which, you're like, oh, come on. But somebody posted under that, Preston has almost 240,000 subscribers on YouTube, and then the girl that posted it has even more than that. And I say, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Yeah, exactly. So that's a lot of eyeballs that saw that post on Twitter. And I mean, if you're dumb enough to think that book burning is a good thing, then there's probably no hope for you in general. So hopefully it spurred some interest there. Why is this actually ending up in the trash can? Is it so controversial and blasphemous that we can't read it? And hopefully that'll put more eyeballs onto it. And there was some good interaction in that post as well. But as far as the commerce, there wasn't anything there that I wanted to buy. I did buy a couple of T-shirts for my daughters. I cannot show up empty-handed because every time I go on trips, business or otherwise, they expect a present the moment I walk in the door. So, I couldn't find anything. Well, I did. I found a couple of T-shirts that weren't fully BTC branded. It just had this little imaginary monster-looking creature on it, and it says, "I am Satoshi" along the bottom. It seemed like a young family there had a booth, and they were creating their own products and stuff. I did ask them if I could pay them in Bitcoin Cash, and he just kind of looked at me weird, and so I ended up actually having to pay with a card. But I told them, I said, "Hey, you should take this. Lower transaction fees. This is only going to benefit you and your business. Instant simple payment verification here, and you don't have to use any custodial third-party layer 2 applications like Lightning and what have you." And seemed receptive, probably heard that same pitch from 10 other people that day. So who knows? But yeah, it was good to interact with people and just nobodies, normies, people in the industry, and then actually some of the politicians that were there. Mike Benz, he's no longer in the political sphere, but still very well connected. And I think he could be a really big asset for us, especially if he can get through that copy of Hijacking Bitcoin. On a personal level, being able to shake Ron Paul's hand was kind of a cherry on top for me. I was a Tennessee delegate for him in 2008 and 2012. And so being able to actually shake his hand, he's looking pretty old and feeble. Don't know how much longer he's going to be around. So it was good to actually be able to shake his hand. Probably the last time I'll be able to have that opportunity. But yeah, in general, we got some good footage. Hopefully a couple of good highlight reels will come out of it. Reach out to the BCH gurus. Hopefully we're going to use BCH Play, maybe some cuts of BCH Furu. Trying to keep it more PG-13 at most, just so it can reach a wider audience. But I'm going to try to integrate those tracks into the highlight reel if they can get me some uncompressed WAV files. Send me yours as well, Jeremy. I know you and Cheapy did one, right?
Yeah, will do.
Yeah, send me an uncompressed file there. We did get some good one-on-one interviews. The roundtable, I thought, went really well, considering it was last minute, really impromptu. I was actually surprised JP showed up. He's like the Richard Branson of crypto, it seems. This guy flies around the world.
Let's just fill this in for the listeners. So you were just hanging around sort of around the conference, and then I heard that there was a lot of the conference is not actually in the conference, in the sense that there's a lot of people in town who are in the industry who know that other people are going to be in town, and they might go to the BTC conference, or maybe they're only there briefly, but really they're also having meetups or chatting or doing deals or whatever outside of the venue. And sort of in that spirit, you got together with Joel Valenzuela, who's been on the show before, Kallisti, obviously, and two other guys as well that you brought in and did a sort of 1 hour chat. It's actually pretty good. Everyone can go check that out. The link's on the slide. It's on your Forward Financial YouTube channel. But just, give a bit of background how that came together, and then how that was all you, Jeremy. You tagged, I think you tagged somebody from ThorChain. I can't remember his handle.
His name was JP Thor, I think.
Well, JP Thor, no, but it was Familiar Cow that you tagged.
Yeah.
He's been on the show, yeah.
Okay, and then he ended up reaching out to JP. I texted him through Telegram, and I was actually surprised he showed up. I mean, again, this guy is like, I thought he'd be. Who are these, these little people that I'm not going to hang with? But he actually showed up, which was cool. Had some good back and forth there, but JP showed up. Joel showed up, which that was awesome. And he has such expertise and experience actually living on crypto that it was really awesome having him part of that discussion. Some first world application there, walking the walk. He's as real as it gets. Really solid guy. Really great meeting, Joel. And then I believe Kallisti met up with Robert Hirsch there at the conference, and he just kind of brought him along. So I was expecting me, Joel, and Kallisti. So these other two cats show up, and Carl's like, oh, shit, we don't have mics for everybody. So we had to kind of scramble. And so the audio, Kallisti's audio is great. JP's is great. Mine was okay. We both had Shure mics, so those always sound crispy. But then the Joel's and Robert's the audio was pretty bad. So my apologies there. We did the best we could, but you can get you can still hear them okay to get the gist of it. But yeah, Joel being there was great. Robert, they've got some really ambitious endeavors there at Continuum, the Continuum project that he's working on. Scalix is what it's called. Maybe something to keep an eye on. Not competitive to BCH. It'd actually be complementary. So really neat what they're working on there. And I'm going to actually be speaking with Robert again more in depth. Might be a good person to have on. Solid dude too, just down to earth, real as it gets. And very passionate about crypto in general. So maybe somebody consider having on the podcast at some point. But yeah, all in all, merchant onboarding, the taco truck. So there was a taco truck literally on the corner next to the convention center. Carl and I, my video guy, we ate there 3 times. I think Kallisti ate there a couple of times. And every time he'd say, when you walk up, he'd say, cash or card. I said, crypto, man. I said, there's a conference literally 50 feet away from you. You're not accepting crypto. I said, you are missing out. They literally could have made a grip if they had just accepted crypto there that weekend. But anyway, I gave him a cash stamp and, talked to him about crypto the 3 times we ate there. Went back the second time, and another guy was asking, hey, you got another one of those stamps? How does it work? So it was good to engage with them. Who knows if they do anything with it or not, but the seed's been planted. We were leaving the conference. So when we finally were exhausted and ready to call it quits, we were walking out, and these guys were standing there handing out beef jerky. And me being primarily a carnivore in my diet, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to take some free beef jerky. And so we could talk to those guys there. I said, I said, "Are you guys taking crypto?" He said, "Yeah, we take Bitcoin." I was like, "Do you guys need to take Bitcoin Cash? Save on the transaction fees, instant payment verification. Why aren't you taking Bitcoin Cash?" And he just, kind of didn't know a clue about it. This guy's a rancher. This guy's growing cattle and selling beef. He's taking crypto because he realizes he has to going forward. And so he didn't have a clue, but we've actually been texting just today. I just sent him $100 in Bitcoin Cash for $100 worth of beef jerky. He just set up the Selene wallet 30 minutes ago. I sent him the transaction, sent him my address, so I should be getting a box of beef jerky in the mail here pretty soon. I'm going to try to maybe do a short interview with him. Maybe his what is his farm? Ripley Cove Farms can be the official beef jerky of Bitcoin Cash.
Well, he can sponsor the podcast if he wants. There
you go. As far as merchants that. The guy from Iron, we had probably the lengthiest conversation. I'm like, why don't you guys throw some hash rate our way? So who knows what happens there. They said they never turned off their miners all the way down to 16K this last year during the bear market. And he's like, we were so profitable. What I found interesting, especially about the mining side, and Kallisti's right, probably over half of that massive expo hall was miners. Lots of Chinese representation there. Thankfully, Carl, my buddy, is fluent in Mandarin, so he's always cutting up with Chinese whenever he runs into them, and had some interesting conversations there as well. But all in all, good experience. The cherry on top, again, Kallisti Gideon Fox. We were walking out, and he's like, "There's Fox News right there." I'm like, "Well, let's go." So I walk over to the guy and said, "Hey, you guys need any more sound bites?" And he goes, "Yeah, I could probably use one more." And we're both sitting in there, and he goes, "Who do you want me to interview?" And I just looked at Kallisti, and he goes, "I'm going to interview you." So he points at Kallisti, and he asked him he actually asked some really good questions, which Chris knocked out of the park. Unfortunately, they cut it short. Of course, they're just looking for sound bites. I think somebody commented on your clip there, Chris, when you posted it, saying that you were praising Trump, and I was like, if you got that out of what he said, you just weren't listening. I said, I think you mentioned the word great. He's like, everything else he said something like great. I'm like, okay, we need to have a drinking game of every time Trump says great, you're going to be in you got to take a shot. You'd be in the ER in 10 minutes because that's all he says. Like the first 15 minutes of his speech was how all his rich buddies were great. Oh, he's great.
Yes.
But I'm glad we got on the news. So Fox 17 in Nashville is the most watched, highest viewership of any news channel in Middle Tennessee. And it says on the bottom, Selene wallet developer, Bitcoin Cash. So that is on the ticker tape right there on that spot, which is really cool to see. You can, if you guys haven't seen anybody listening.
Yeah, we've got it. We're gonna line it up and play it here for the listeners. So we've got a nice little 2 minute spot there, and apparently they interviewed a few people, right? But Kallisti was the only one that made it into the final edit. So let's have a listen here.
Yeah, cue it up.
Jed.
Continuing our coverage of the Bitcoin conference, we wanted to see how the Bitcoin market is responding today, given the former president's support as keynote speaker. Now, this graph behind us shows the market price of Bitcoin before Trump's speech and then right after. Here is the price of Bitcoin around 145 this afternoon today, right before the former president took the podium. Its value was about $69,000. And this is how the Bitcoin market value looked at 3:40 p.m. right after Trump spoke. Now you could see a significant dip there. The value dropped to about $67,000. We caught up with one conference goer who said after hearing Trump's speech, he actually wasn't surprised to see those numbers drop some.
The sentiment toward the keynote is actually not as positive as we thought it might have been. Even in my local Bitcoin group, in our chat room for that, they're like, wow, way below our expectations, right? So while I think he was saying a lot of great things, I think a lot of people had higher expectations.
And the numbers did come right back up after that. But Christopher there says he wants to see more details on some of the promises Trump made today about Bitcoin and how he'll accomplish those goals for the industry's future.
So there we have it. Selene wallet is starting to make it big. You've got the hat on there in the shot. It says Selene wallet. It says Bitcoin Cash. I love it. This is crazy for me because I was thinking, we started Selene less than 2 years ago, right? It would have been August 22, and then we launched May of 23, right, with the cash tokens upgrade. So we're doing pretty well, I feel like, to be getting on big news networks in that amount of time. Obviously, this was kind of a unique situation. It wasn't focused on that, but it, you make your own luck, right? You were there, you're in the mix, you already had the hat and the merch ready to go. You talked to them. They talked to whoever else who sucked. So they put you in as the one clip that they did. How was it being on the news? Did everybody see it? What happened?
I mean, my friends and family are celebrating that for sure. It's pretty cool. It's a little bit surreal. Like, I was definitely walking away from that with like a big fat smile on my face. I mean, Steve and Carl could attest to that. Like, I immediately got on my phone. I was like, I just got on fucking Fox News, put it on my Snapchat. And so, but really, like, I wanted that to happen because it was out when I was out the night before with at One Ultra Fresh. Shout outs to him. He was the guy who went to Miami last year and infiltrated. But I was out with him at a bar, and literally just on the TV, I just saw the headline, Donald Trump to speak at Bitcoin conference, and it just clicked, like, there's going to be news cameras there, and I should take advantage of that, because I'm already over here putting my graffiti all over the Wavlake board, right? Might as well just go all in. So I did that, and we're literally walking out of the convention center, and we see a Fox News camera, and they're just doing an interview with the pleb, and I'm like, that's it, that's the opportunity. So I don't have the kind of approach game that Steve does. So I was just like, dude, I need your help.
Carl is, I'm just riding Carl's coattails. Carl will walk up to anybody. Like, literally, there were supermodels there, and Carl's like, no fear, walking right up to him. Hey, we want an interview. Yeah, I'm hanging in the back, biting my nails. So it was mostly Carl, but I did walk up and talk to the news guy. I'm so glad we did, because it turned out amazing. But
yeah, so what else did they ask? What didn't make the final cut then? If they were talking to you, what kind of questions was it?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to present because, I mean, first off, they asked, like, who I am, right? So I introduced myself. I'm Kallisti. I'm the lead developer for Selene Wallet for Bitcoin Cash, right? So they're like, oh, well, what's Bitcoin Cash? Okay, so I have to try to answer that question both as succinctly and as neutrally as possible without going down a rabbit hole, which is challenging because everyone's got their own context for all of this stuff. Luckily, I've had this conversation enough times, so, I can lean on a few things. Like, well, they're in 2017, okay, you have the contentious technical debate, we'll just leave it at that. It was really heated, and now we have two teams, Orange Bitcoin and Green Bitcoin. And Orange Bitcoin is a lot of what we see at this conference, where it's very like political and traditional finance focused, and Green Bitcoin is a lot closer to the original roots of the Satoshi white paper entitled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So the whole focus being, cheap and fast transactions with no middleman really creates a new frontier for economic freedom. I usually say something along those lines, right? And so he started asking some more probing questions about, okay, well, what was I hoping to get out of the conference, and what my thoughts on it were, which is where my thoughts on the keynote came from. But also, I really, especially in a setting like that where, okay, we're on Fox News, so we're addressing a huge demographic of people, and I don't want to introduce bias. I do want people to actually come to their own conclusions. I don't want to force my views down their throat. So I'm going to say, he asked me some questions about my thoughts, and I was like, I just really think that people need to be better informed and better educated, not only just about this industry, but about Bitcoin in general. And there's a lot of great resources out there, such as the book Hijacking Bitcoin by Roger Ver, who was one of the very first Bitcoin entrepreneurs ever, right? So he's seen it all. And so I got a lot of clips in there along those lines. And they did ask some good probing questions, which is probably why they decided to go with the interviews, because I actually know what I'm talking about. But it was nice.
Maybe that was it. That's really interesting. Like they talk to all those other people, and then they decide, the producer says, okay, we got 10 seconds, and they review, 5 minutes of footage from 5 different people. And they're like, this guy is clearly the one we got to have the clip from. He was like the expert,
Yeah, so I'm really, really grateful for that opportunity. Like when I saw that headline the night before, I was like, we have to do this. And I'm so glad that we just made it a reality.
That's amazing. Sure. That's amazing. Steve, how is it for you? You're off to the side. You're in the shot. You're like moral support in there. I love that you're like looking over at the side like the bodyguard or something like that.
I sent it to my brother, and he said, "Congrats, you got your 7.5 seconds of fame," because it's half my face. So I'm due another 7.5 seconds at some point here, guys. I'm gonna get it. So I was standing there with the Use Crypto Stop War sticker, but you couldn't see anything.
They cut that out, yeah.
I don't know why. I should have just stepped out of the frame the moment they started interviewing Chris, because he was killing it. But it was funny. We talked to one of the interviews we did. We talked to just a normie, but I don't know if it was his spouse or sister, or it was a girl there with him that used to work for Bitcoin Magazine. And so we actually did get this on camera. I don't know if we'll run it or not, if it fits, but I started talking to him about BCH. I was actually talking to him about BCH, and he was interacting and engaging. And you see her slowly slinking out of the picture because she was working for Bitcoin Magazine and then went to work for another BTC. She showed me her wrist bracelet. It said "Toxic Maxi" on it. And so she
can't
just
be seen in the BCH propaganda. Oh, jeez.
She literally slinks out of frame while Carl is filming, and I'm talking to this guy, which was hilarious. And then I talked to her afterwards. She's like, "I'm so sorry." She's like, I can't be on that. So you got to cut that last bit. So she's fearful for her job. If that tells you anything right there, her skids are getting greased somewhere for BTC, but it was pretty interesting when that happened. But yeah,
That's just like a classic example, right? That we're just living in this environment where it's all just psychology. There's no the wall is all this internal stuff that they've built up amongst themselves, which the truth just cuts straight through it. If you're just there in person, being like, "I'm supporting BCH, what up?" They're not gonna, I don't know, karate attack you or something like you said. They just have to then wilt under the pressure of facts and reality and all this Twitter banter and all that. It's all just a big echo chamber that in reality it's not scary, it's not nothing, it's actually just kind of pathetic, but you kind of got to see it happen. And I sort of feel like at some point that a few more of those clips are going to come out if BCH people are more going to conferences and engaging, and that one of them will go viral at one point. Just the ETH guys or someone will pick up on it and just retweet it to all high heaven, like Laser Eye gets roasted in person, and that'll be what pops the bubble. As I can just see it happening, right?
Yep. Just a matter of time.
So tell me a bit about, you talked about trying to onboard the vendors and the guys outside the conference. Were people actually spending BTC anywhere? I didn't see anything really about, except for this Wavlake board, which apparently you guys were the ones dominating anyway. So did you see people making BTC transactions? Were they trying to do that with the merchants? Was there any of the nearby places that they'd onboarded and accepting, anything like that?
There were. The main conference merch table was giving 21% off for BTC transactions. Of course, everybody's using Lightning. And I'm like, you guys are using, I just wanted to get on the loudspeaker and say, you're using a shittier version of PayPal. At the end of the day, you're not actually transacting peer-to-peer on-chain. But that was the elephant in the room, if you will. A couple of vendors that I did walk up to did accept. I talked to one guy briefly. There was a bunch of vendors on the back row. And I don't know if you saw this guy or not, Kallisti, but the guy that had created a board game it was an actual Bitcoin board game that he'd created, and it looked really neat and creative. And I started talking to him about Bitcoin Cash, gave him a cash stamp, and engaged with him. And I probably will again in the future. I was like, you need to incorporate an expansion package, if you will, for Bitcoin Cash in your board game. But the few vendors that I saw that were actually selling merch were accepting Lightning in my experience. So one of the neatest vendors was this farm in northern Florida, just right on the Georgia-Florida line, called The Farm on Okefenokee. And they're starting a homesteading type environment there, 1,000 acres, 250 plots. They're not cheap, selling the plots for $200,000 each, and then you can buy different house plans. They go all the way up to about $700K for the house, but they want to be very crypto friendly and adoptive in that regard. This is an avenue that BCH would work perfectly in an entire community. So I would like to reach out to them. Breedlove, actually, Robert Breedlove was there. I actually did see him. I almost went personal on him. I said, and asked him about all of the whatever happened a month or so ago, but I didn't do that. He was cordial. He was nice. He's as big as he seems on TV. The guy he's just jacked. I mean, he is full on Chad in every aspect as far as aesthetics.
How tall is he? Do you know? Is he?
I would say 6'3" He was looking down at me, so I'm 5'11", and he was looking down. He's a big dude, so and it seemed nice enough, and he's somewhat involved in that. Oh well, he actually has a plot there on this homesteading outfit, so that was really neat because it's something I've been inquiring about myself. Seems to be a bit of a movement, at least in the States, of different areas of the country are doing this homesteading type thing, which is, I think, absolutely what we need to get back to. So the taco truck outside, the beef jerky guys. And as far as merchant adoption, that really wasn't our focus here at this event. But I've got a lot of stickers left. I printed 500 of these things. We gave away several hundred, but I still have a lot left. If anybody watches this, if you want a used crypto stop wars, DM me just in Twitter. Send me a DM. I'll send you a few in the mail on my dollar. But the cash stamps thing too, I know we'll probably maybe get into that here in a minute, but I think it's a really good onboarding tool as well that I think has a potential to work well.
Yeah, you mentioned that a few times.
One thing too.
Yeah.
So in the enterprise stage, there was some free coffee from, I believe it was called Compass Coffee. And when I was getting my free cup of coffee, I asked him, "Where's your donation QR, man?" He said, "Oh, we don't have one." I was like, "Oh, why not? You could just be making money right now." I would have donated, and just didn't really have a reason. And I'm kind of surprised by that. Like Steve said, merchant adoption wasn't exactly the focus for the conference. It wasn't even something that really crossed my mind, was like trying to get a bunch of people on Selene or anything. We're in enemy territory. You got to play that a little different already, you know?
Yeah, but even just the BTC, except, I'm just thinking in my mind, and for the listeners, contrasting with Bliss, obviously we had the venue there accepting BCH. People were transacting BCH among themselves as they needed to. You could go to those vendors nearby that were supporting BCH, right? Several people did the whole thing only on BCH. Like anytime we try and do a physical conference, there's always that element to it. And I'm just wondering whether that has completely vanished from the BTC ecosystem. Because I was watching as well, the on-chain volume feeds didn't rise. So that it's not like this generated any significant amount of on-chain traffic that needed to happen. Maybe there was stuff going on Lightning with pre-open channels. I don't know, but it was still mostly like op returns. There were some people selling the runes, whatever, right? So has all that completely vanished, or it's just dwindling away, or what?
I think it's dwindling because, like Steve said, as far as I could tell, a lot of the vendors, like all of the artists and whatnot, you could buy stuff with your sats, and they were all using Lightning, as far as I could tell, because I didn't get super deep into that. Now, again, the Wavlake board is the interesting part to me because it was pretty much untouched for the entire weekend, like all 3 days. I was absolutely the top user on it. So I think the reason is because of interoperability with the wallets and the protocol, just because Lightning is just a pain in the ass to use, so nobody uses it, right? So I would have expected enthusiasts to be more excited to throw like maybe 1,000 sats at this thing, and it didn't seem like the case, because it on day one, we didn't start doing like the big boy transactions that actually put us on the board and kept us there. We were just throwing 1,000, 2,000 sats in there, which isn't very much money. So, who's not going to just try to play with a tech for like $2 or something, right?
Apparently no one. Apparently most people didn't want to. Didn't want to try it.
So I don't think there's adoption by our standards. I think objectively there was some, but it's definitely not the way that we would expect it as BCHers.
It's just crazy because I think of, obviously, Bliss, we had 50 people, and St. Kitts we had 100, something like that, and Argentina maybe we're going to have a few more. But if you had 10,000, 15,000 people at a BCH event, it would be like a tidal wave for the local economy. Like, it would undoubtedly just dominate the local economy. Yeah. And it's crazy to me that the BTC guys have these huge things, but even then it's still just like a dribble of money or economic activity that is going on there, right? Absolutely crazy. Anyway, Steve, so walk me through, you've mentioned a few times these cash stamps. Now, that's been a bit of a project, and I even am not really that familiar with all the details from the beginning. So walk me through what is this project and what is it about?
So I don't think it's anything super new, but I think it has the potential of adding a lot of neat functionality and being used in a great way for promotion and adoption and just getting the word out. And I've been brainstorming on different ways to expand this. But essentially, it's just a scannable QR code paper wallet that we've created a tool for to print on stickers, and then you can affix them anywhere. I just stuck them on the back of these stickers. I'm not going to show the QR code ones because they'll get used immediately. But I put a $5 QR code on the back of about 81 of these. I figured my personal budget was to give away $400 at the conference, so that's what I did. But I'm trying to remember, because I was looking for something like this, and I just was looking around. I think I may have come across something similar on the BCH portal. Who runs that, by the way? I'm trying to. Is that GPC? CipherCat. No. That's right. CipherCat. Okay. The two cats in the scene here. I confuse them. And it was something similar to that. So I reached out to the developer that created this other thing, and I said, "Hey, here's what I want to do." And literally within a matter of minutes, he was like, "Oh, that sounds like a great idea." And he brought his brother on. I don't know if I should name drop or not. Jim Hamill and his brother Harvey Zuckin, I believe. They're in Australia, to my knowledge. But they quickly went to work on this tool. And Harvey, I think, did a lot of the back end stuff on it. And then Jim was helping out, and got it live and functional before we headed to the conference, and I was able to print out 81 stamps. Very simple. You can. It's still in beta and testing, but you can go to stamps.cash and see the functionality and how it works. You've got a redeem option and a create option. So we send basically everybody to stamps.cash. And then if you've been given a stamp, you just click on redeem my stamp, and it points you to download the bitcoin.com wallet. I want that to say Selene wallet as soon as possible. So that's on you guys. Ball's in your court.
Yes, absolutely.
The bitcoin.com wallet has that sweep feature that we needed in order to reclaim. So the idea was, I don't want to hand out $400 worth of stamps and not be able to sweep that back or get that back if they don't ever get claimed. And so this was that back-end aspect that they were building and tying it in with the bitcoin.com wallet. So it works really well. I personally handed several out and watched them actually use it. A nice thing about the tool is you can go in and it's just a cache feature, but you can go in and see the stamps that you've printed, which ones have been claimed. and see that ticker kind of going up. And then I print an expiration date on each one, so it prompts them to actually take action. So if they don't claim the stamp by August 31st, which is this run of stamps that I did, if they don't claim it by then, I just go in to Electron Cash and sweep it all back into my wallet, so it's not Bitcoin Cash wasted. But yes. I'm just thinking of different ways to use this, and in my opinion, in order to go ahead, do you have any questions yet?
I've got a question, and then depending on the answer, maybe a suggestion.
Yeah.
So did you guys take inspiration from anything when you were making this, or was it just... I can't remember what it's called. If you pull up the BCH portal, there's something on there. I was just looking for it while we were talking here. There was a tool or a resource on there that spurned the idea for me. And then there was also an article that I ran across. This article's from about 2 years ago about a guy in California, I think, that printed out $1,000 worth of QR codes with BCH loaded on them and stuck them all over town, and then generated a media buzz about this. Did you read this article? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. This is David Bond, who did his Bitcoin Man with promotion, where he handed out all this BCH and he got a bunch of local media, and it was actually fairly successful from what I know at driving adoption. He then used the credibility from that to run another flip starter for a couple hundred BCH, and then completely failed to deliver on the vast majority of his promises for that. So his initial idea was actually good, but it was basically just a pre-grift to build him credibility to then run a bigger scam, essentially. But the initial idea was actually good, and it's not something that we should overlook. I'm really glad that it informed you on how to do it, because this is some... So you're telling me that's like you get the stamp, and does the stamp has like a QR code? Is it just a QR code of the private key, or is it a QR code that redirects through a link with explanations, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's a QR code. The stamp is how you actually initiate it. It's a paper wallet, so it's going to immediately, as soon as you scan it with the Bitcoin.com wallet, it's going to put $5 in BCH.
Just deposits the money.
Yep, straight into it. So it's a really neat experience. I wanted something that I could hand to somebody with simple directions, where I wouldn't have to say, okay, go here, download this wallet. Okay, now show me your QR code. Okay, now I'm going to send you this. I wanted to put a sticker in somebody's hand. It says, go to stamps.cash to redeem. Simple two-step instruction there, and they instantly have $5 in BCH in their wallet. And so that was the idea of this. I'm going to start carrying a stack with me whenever I go out to eat. I'll be leaving this as tips for all of my meals. You can denominate it how you want. You can put any denomination on there within reason. If you're a high roller, make $100 BCH cash stamps if you want to. Yes. Make $1,000, whatever you want to do, you can do it. And you don't have the issue of not being able to claw it back if they don't actually use it, or if the stamp gets smudged, the QR code's non-readable, etc. You can get those funds back. But I think this is a great promotion tool. This is on the ground, boots on the ground marketing. We want to eventually incorporate promotional and branding aspects. So these stamps will be personalized to a brand, whether it's Selene Wallet or any this Ripley Cove beef jerky, whatever, promotional items that actually benefit people, rather than I don't know how many stupid keychains I got the last few days up there, but give me something I can actually use. Give me Bitcoin Cash at the end of the day, and that does that. And we want to get more creative on ideas to use it, the tech side of it. I personally would like to brainstorm an NFT scenario using this concept. And in my experience, I think you got to do it like BCH Gurus is doing it. Not just pretty cool collective art, but it also has to have another utility and use function. And right now I'm trying to brainstorm how that would work. I know a lot of artists, a lot. And I would love to use some of their artwork in a promotional way built on BCH. I don't know how that works. I need somebody that's knowledgeable in the NFT space and somebody that can maybe gamify an NFT a platform concept in this way that gets the word out, built on BCH, and actually disseminates BCH at the same time. So again, this is all brainstorming type of stuff, but if nothing else, anybody can use this tool. If you want to proselytize, even if you got, even if you want to break up $10 into 50-cent BCH transactions just to get the word out, $5 probably sweetens the deal a little better, but 50 cents is 50 cents. So the point is engaging and starting that conversation and letting people experience peer-to-peer electronic cash instantly on-chain, which is something that BTC cannot do. And this is something that could really be a differentiator and set us apart and slaying the giant at the end of the day. So hopefully we continue to work on this tool. And I say I'm not doing any of this back-end stuff. These are the geeks that are working on it, and hats off to them. So I don't know what direction they want to go with it as well. I can't claim it was my idea. It was just an idea that I expounded on.
Yeah, so the suggestion that I had, do you guys remember Gabriel Cardona?
Yeah.
He was like one of the old like 10x developers in BCH, I would say. When he was working with Bitcoin.com, he created something called the Golden Ticket, and they were these scratch-off cards that essentially you would load up a wallet. You would say how many of these tickets that you want to generate, and then you can choose to either distribute the initial like funds evenly, or you can create a raffle system. So the top person gets 50%, the next, and you can choose the way that you, cascade the smaller denominations. But I will post this repo in the chat. It's old now. The code would definitely need to be updated. But these are the nicest looking gamified like crypto paper wallets I've ever seen.
Damn, this sounds pretty hype. Like I'm loving this. We're cooking live on the show here. Like I knew about these cash stamps. I knew you were doing it at the conference, but I thought it was just a simple like QR code scanning a private key. So I didn't realize you've done this whole tool that you can distribute it out how many, and you can claw back the funds and stuff. This is sick. And now we apparently have the lottery version that probably just needs a bit of updating. And then I love that element, as listeners will know. Anything that's got a little bit of gambling flavor into it, that just gets people much more excited. That would be hype as hell at the next conference. We got to be handing out these bad boys, and then everybody's scanning, and then somebody's going to be thrilled that they got $100 in BCH. If you have some cascading payout, then you throw in a couple of NFTs in the mix there, win a BCH guru, win a Jessica NFT or whatever, as well as the actual BCH involved. This is some pretty great stuff, and I can see it working when you're in person with people. It's fun and it's engaging to people that people love physical stuff, right? And then the fact that they have to go through the process of scanning the QR code themselves, it helps connect physically with the concept of P2P cash, right? That's because we're so limited by it's digital. Like that's good, but at the same time, people cash is physical. So this ties those together. It's incredible. I love this.
Man, you guys just gave me so many ideas. Actually, like I had like a Jimmy Neutron brain blast while you guys are talking, because I see like in my mind, I think we actually just solved the chicken and egg problem, like for real. Because I didn't know about the David Bond thing. I didn't actually know that backstory, and just with recent events, like I'm seeing a lot of overlap here. So what can we do? We have Selene, right? Great onboarding experience. We have Stamps. That's an even better onboarding experience, right, Jeremy? Because what we were trying to do with Selene is load up the app, there's your QR, and it can't be any faster. Well, guess what? They made it even faster with Stamps. And we already are going to do shareable link. That's like next thing on our roadmap. So Stamps integration is, just one little tweak away from there. So that's something really high priority. Now, okay, what can we do with just a little bit of capital, just a small amount? We could easily crowdfund this if we absolutely had to, but I don't even think we have to, because look how effective these stamps have already been. Look how effective Shareable Link is. And then look how effective just that little local marketing campaign that David did was. We take these elements, we put them together. Now there's some missing links, right? Merchant adoption. We need point of sale and payment gateways still as far as the physical and digital aspects. We're working on that too, right? Okay, so now the last piece is with like event ticketing and like the social stuff, which I know you and I have discussed, but hasn't really been quite public yet. But spoiler alert, like I want to take down Ticketmaster. I don't think that's a secret either. So I really see a lot of these tools. I mean, it's like we always keep saying, like we've been saying, it's all about A, products, and B, those products integrating and linking together in a way that does create this viral effect until we get a critical mass of products and users and people actually transacting that we really start to snowball. And I really see an avenue where if we have all of these pieces together, just right here, even in my city, I already know some local Bitcoiners, like, or even in any other place really where you just have that adoption. Let's kind of rewind to Bliss with Elliot's speech, right? It's the same concept. We can snowball this by adding these technologies together, doing a little bit of a media stunt, like putting the QRs everywhere and getting, your local news station involved. And if there's an actual incentive for users and merchants to just scan that QR code, and there's just this tiny little, oh, hey, I can create a circular economy now because I do have $5, $10, $20 worth of whatever. People can actually kind of play with it and see the value, feel it out for themselves, and then go, oh, this is something, and we have a built-in user base. We can look at other technologies like Tinder. They literally did the same thing in Los Angeles when they were like brand spanking new as a startup. They just threw a party, and then the only way you can get in the party is if you install Tinder. So, do something like that for your whole city. Big.
Yes, and I mean the other element to that we definitely need as well too, and this is a case of there's a lot to build, and it's going to take a little while for the pieces to come together. But you can see they are starting to get, once you have the foundations, things start to click here. Like with the Selene integration with stamps, is that also we want to do a map, right? And it's a shame that there isn't a better, more vetted, well integrated sort of open source map solution. But we will get to one because the Paytaka guys have already got that kind of going with their merchant network, and they were also working on for a while. I haven't heard anything about it in a while, but they had their Purely Peer, which was basically like Pokemon Go, walking around to different vendors or different places in the city. I actually did the beta test for it. It was really cool, and you could find the right tree or whatever, and then you could find a chest of some BCH like directly into your wallet, and that's the same thing, right? So what's going to happen is once we have Selene with the cash stamps and the map, then what we'll do is you can link that together with the merchants. So the merchants are the places to spend it, and you drive traffic by the merchants are the ones who fund the stamps, and they fund a bunch of stamps in their area. So then users come, scan the QR code, pick up the coins, and then go, where can I spend it? Oh, what an accident. I'm 10 meters or 100 meters away from this place where I can spend it. So even if the merchant is paying a little bit, they're driving footfall, which then, people as lost leading, people then pay more. And once we have that, then obviously it's all built into Selene. Anybody in the world will be able to find one of these hotspots, Argentina, St. Kitts, whatever, and start either one, advertising, or B, just like two donating and just spamming their own little drops in there, which will just kick off a huge loop of adoption, right? So I think we're maybe 6 to 12 months away from having this kind of tooling that nobody in crypto is ready for anything like this, because everybody else is so busy with their DeFi scams and like mining industry or whatever, right?
I got another shot in the dark idea for you. What if so we already know people love locking up their coins, and we know people love geocaching. Well, if you just mix the two things, there's like little locations where you have to go, you scan the QR code, but rather than you receiving any money, you have to spend a certain amount of Satoshis. And then after
get an NFT.
5 years, 10 years.
I was going to say the exact same thing, dude. Yeah, that was exactly what I was just about to say.
Cool. You guys already connected the dots. We're all on the same page.
We actually have a ticket on the Selene issue tracker for a BCH geocache game already, because Mini Satoshi suggested it a while ago. And I was just thinking, okay, well, this Pokemon Go idea, you can literally gamify going to merchants, and then we can just have a little Selene vault that just mints some NFTs because it's cheap to do that.
I'm just looking right now while we're talking at the thread with between me and the guys that are working on cash stamps, and one of the first things I mentioned was a Pokemon Go type of a game. I've got a local merchant here that I'll be onboarding soon. It's a local donut shop. And I was just thinking about something as simple as going donut hunting for the QR code. You scan it, you get BCH, you go get your donut from Tasty King Donuts here locally. But that's just a small scale. But yeah, I think including that non-digital tangible element is going to be a really good stepping stone to getting people used to engaging in this technology and using it on an ongoing basis. And the fact that it's instant and fractions of a cent, it's something that can actually work. You couldn't do this with BTC, obviously. But yeah, I'm excited, really excited. I don't know. Again, we've been working on this or discussing it for a little over a month now, and they really hustled to get something to market. But I want to work with you guys or whomever, and putting our heads together and seeing how these different pieces can form the puzzle. But I think it's something that has a lot of potential for sure.
Yeah, this is, well, plenty of cooking. We might have to put a pin in it for now. I'm sure we could go all day with the brainstorming. But yeah, the engineering is going to kick in. And I think, yeah, it's really just worth highlighting to everybody that this kind of thing is the result of building the foundations correctly, right? The node layer stuff, the protocol layer stuff is all good. Fast, cheap, instant transactions, right? You need that. Then you've got the cash tokens, which got built in. That's for the NFTs and being able to do the drops and so forth. And we already have the kind of merchant adoption ground game and local hotspots. And then we've been working on the wallets with Selene and Paytaka, and other wallets have been upping their game over time, right? And the JavaScript tooling, which then makes this kind of stuff easy to build. And now that's leading into these more bigger, exciting consumer end products, right? So it's just a question of an exponential snowball that obviously I was hyping up on this show, 2 years ago. And I think you can now see, as all the pieces are clicking together, like the world that we're going to get into by the end of this year and certainly into next year throughout 2025, the BCH economy is really going to start picking up with the kind of tooling and products that nobody else in crypto has. I'm thrilled.
They always say everything is built in layers. Bitcoin is built in layers. I think a lot of people imagine like a stack, like the OSI model. No, it's more like the onion router. We're building outward, not upward.
Yes.
It's really cool to see.
Yes. And every layer, just if the problems on the are solved at the easier layer, then it means the outer layer, the more complex or more involved layers, is just simple, or as simple as it can be. Any big project is going to be a hard project, but it doesn't need to be any harder than it already is. If your foundations of your castle are already solid, it's much easier to build sort of the parapets and the fancy bits. So as far as the BTC conference goes, then I don't know if you guys had any sort of final thoughts on that. I'm especially interested to hear, like, you've only mentioned the sort of the speakers in passing, and maybe you weren't at those stages, so you didn't watch that so much. But from the vibe on the ground, were people enjoying those speakers? Was it such a big deal that Trump was there, or RFK Jr.? Were people pretty meh on that? What was the vibe?
Well, for me, it seemed like a good energy. I think Trump was definitely like the big headline. A lot of people were excited for RFK also. But overall, so the open source stage, I think that's actually something that didn't get enough attention. A lot of the stuff that when I was going on the app and it had everything laid out as far as scheduled, most of the stuff that I was actually interested in seeing, even remotely, was all going to be on the open source stage. And I didn't actually catch most of that because when I did walk by, I'm just, again, so disengaged with BTC that it's just like, okay, cool, you guys are catching up, awesome. You guys can keep brainstorming, but are you going to get anywhere? Not without a fork. So am I going to actually watch the speech? Nah. I was just off doing other things because, again, just the vibes were so TradFi political and legacy tech layer 2 stuff as far as I'm concerned. And I was just really more interested in seeing where the actual Bitcoin was.
Steve, what did you think? What was the vibe with the speakers?
So again, I didn't get to catch any of the speakers, sans Mike Benz there at the end, which was, I'm glad we at least caught the tail end of it. We didn't even catch the whole part of that. His big bugaboo is recently has been hammering away at Tether, which I don't think there's enough people making enough noise about. So I'm glad he was speaking up, and he was getting pushback from Preston, which is a laser-eyed maxi if there ever was one. But they cut him off actually because he was really getting into the Tether aspect at the end of his speech, and Preston and whoever else was directing things, they kept telling him to wrap it up. And so he needs a longer format platform. In fact, I would, if you haven't, Jeremy, definitely reach out to him and get him on the podcast. Let him fully pull the curtain back. He's got that insider tied to legislative aspect there, being working in the Beltway there for several years. So if you can get him on, that would be amazing. There was definitely you could tell for the most part, you could tell the crypto people and the MAGA people, and there were some stark contrasts there. And I'm not saying they're exclusive; they may have been both, but the MAGA people were certainly out in full force when Trump was there. You saw a lot of red hats walking through the building, but everyone was friendly and cordial, and yeah, I mean, all around, it seemed to be a decent experience for going into the snake pit. It wasn't as bad as I was expecting. So,
yeah. Is there anything else? Any other things you expected or didn't expect that we can just wrap this topic on? Like I know Kallisti, you posted on Twitter that it was less sort of toxic and aggressive maybe than you expected when you kind of were showing up in person.
Yeah, kind of like we alluded to a little bit earlier, the real conference was actually in the hallways and outside. So yeah, the expo was cool, but really everyone that I talked to, almost everyone actually was like, yeah, we're here actually for the networking opportunities. We're here to like talk to actual Bitcoiners. And that's, in my opinion, where the real value was too. That's where I had all my fun also. A lot of people actually weren't interested in the speakers. And in fact, that's how I ended up on Fox News, is because I was saying that the sentiment was just not anywhere near as good as anyone expected. And that was unanimous. I was reading my Twitter feed, I was in my Telegram groups, unanimously, I think the entire community was feeling like that Donald Trump speech was not up to expectations. So it's just interesting to see. It's almost like it's the next chapter of that whole narrative collapse that we've been documenting, where people are just having to second guess what they've been thinking and what they think they know. Now, on top of that, they're also, it was a pretty diverse crowd, both culturally and in terms of like crypto. Like I met a guy who literally got into Bitcoin and crypto period like this February 2024. So he knew nothing. He didn't even know what a sat was, right? I was trying to explain to him, yeah, Bitcoin goes down to 8 decimal places. He's like, crazy, bro. So there's definitely all of that. And there are definitely a lot of other cryptos, or like crypto bros, I guess, who are representing their coins. Of course, we had our BCH stuff going on, but I also saw Doge, XRP, I saw some Solana. I saw even some meme coins, Shiba, with JP with his Thor chain wrapped Cybertruck, right? Like, so there was a lot of like altcoin activity there. And like I said on Twitter earlier, it wasn't anywhere near as tribal or maximalist in person as I thought. I mean, yeah, people were there for Bitcoin. But it was a pretty diverse crowd. It was pretty diverse in thought, I would say, because even like that guy that I met, Robert Hirsch, like he's working on something that integrates chains, and that's, I think, the kind of the direction we're going forward, because we look also at the narrative that has been kind of proliferating through crypto. It's a lot more, okay, the free market's going to decide in real time. It's going to be a lot more, we've got multiple competing currencies, and let's just let the best tech win. And we're all here for P2P cash or anti-CBDC or anything along those lines. It's interesting and great to see that unity.
There were some interesting characters there. They're bigger in the shitcoin space. One guy, Ken, that was walking around, the guy with dreads. I can't remember his last name. He's got a Dash tattoo, a Litecoin tattoo. He's covered in different coin tattoos. He's got a QR code tattoo, an NFT on his eye. I know he's a big influencer in the crypto space, but I was actually surprised by his reaction. We got this on video, so it'll be in the highlight reel. And we kind of tiptoed into the nuance of how it had been politically co-opted, this conference. And I said, would you say that Bitcoin's been hijacked? And he's like, oh, definitely. And kind of went on for about 30 seconds there. About that aspect, and lots of, I mean, this guy's got thousands and thousands of followers, big influencer there, but I don't think he was chain loyal. He was a bit of a crypto whore, if you will. I mean, the guy's literally covered in tattoos. But some interesting characters there, and kind of pigtailing on what Kallisti just said. We talked to a couple of ladies who were brand new within the last few months, had just started delving into crypto, and we asked them why they're there, and they just both said, we're here to learn more. 22-year-old, and I think her friend was like in her 30s. 22-year-old was a model, smoke show. You'll see her on the clip. And they were just there and eager to learn. And it was neat engaging with different people from all aspects in this space. But all in all, I don't know how much of a dent we put in things up there, but I got to think we planted some seeds where they actually count. I mean, and Kallisti getting on Fox and doing his thing was awesome at the very, very tail end as well. So all in all, a good experience for sure.
I have one last thing I want to note too. So outside, I was on my way to get lunch with Robert, and somebody from some charity, like think about the late 90s, early 2000s, you had like the whole starving African children ads that were running on TV all the time everywhere. It was that charity. And they stopped me and they're like, yeah, so are you like one of those Bitcoin people? I'm like, yes. What's going on in there? What do you think about it? I'm like, I may or may not be the right person for you to ask this question because I'm actually like an op. So we got to chatting. I showed them Selene, and the interesting takeaway was even this person was picking up on the TradFi politics vibes that were just emanating from this convention center. And I was explaining Bitcoin, in terms of electronic cash and showing them Selene. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. That actually makes sense. So I was like, oh yeah. So they were asking, yeah, can you donate $30 to our charity? It's like, I actually don't have USD to do that with. Sorry, but here, I'll give you $30 in BCH. I don't care if you sell it or do what you want with it, but I just want you to show you that this exists and you should know about it.
Did you actually send them 30 in BCH? Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's very, very cool. All right, so let's get on to what else is going on at the moment then in BCH. We've got the Selene stats release that we did as well too. Been long awaited. I've been promising it to everyone for so long. We finally shipped it. We've had about 60 people per day and 200 in the last week, but I just had a look today. We've had 80 in the last 24 hours and 76 already today. 237 people in the last 30 days and 329 total since we've launched it in the last 1 year. Obviously, it's only been live for a couple of weeks, but I have been loving that. I don't know about you guys, but I get up in the morning and I can check that. I can see maybe we're hitting a new all-time high. Even just a little bit, hasn't started going exponential yet, but I can already feel that vibe starting. And then coincidentally, the Fifth of Gaming guys, David also released a bunch of stats from his site, and I think this is incredible because if we can get the BCH community more in this mentality of having actual stats and metrics, then that gives targets for people to work on and improve. And it's just so motivating to see that it is actually working when it's often a lot of it is obviously online, and it might just be people individually in their small little area. But if you can see the aggregate effort of the adoption rising globally, it's just so incredible to see. I don't know, Kallisti, do you have any reflections on our stats rollout? It's gone well so far, right?
I'm loving it. I thought it was a great idea from the start, and I'm glad that we finally have it. I think it's clean. I think it looks great. I love looking at those stats too. I log in every day and look at it. And I think you're really onto something with the idea of, okay, let's give people a reason to open up the app every day. Even if they're not necessarily making transactions. We already had planned on let's my original slogan for Selene, we didn't end up going with it, but I called it your gateway to the Bitcoin Cash economy. And that's still really reflective in the overall vision that I have for Selene, is not only do we want to give you the best peer-to-peer cash experience that exists on this planet, we also want to give you access and education for the entire ecosystem. We want you to be able to look in Selene and find out everything there is about BCH and use every BCH feature and show you the true power of this amazing technology. And so having these stats is just the beginning. Like, we've basically gamified adoption to the first degree, and kind of going back to those ideas that we were talking about earlier, we're going to continue to gamify adoption with more degrees of just cool stuff to do, and more number go up, and more incentives and rewards and all of that kind of thing. And we're going to do that without becoming a shitcoin app like other wallets that we're competing against. And that's the main important part. So another kind of guiding slogan that I have in my mind when I think about Selene is the minimalist Bitcoin Cash for Bitcoin Cash. I'm sorry, the minimalist wallet for Bitcoin Cash maximalists, right? Yes. So we want it to be sleek, but we want it to be robust. And so really balancing that is a challenge, but I think we're threading the needle on that really well, and I think we will continue to do that, because, I mean, as long as we don't do dumb stuff like, oh yeah, let me just like throw a bunch of pop-ups and ads, and oh, let me add like a shitcoin token, and like, we're just not going to do any of that. We're going to do stuff that's focused, and we're also going to give you the ability to see what you want to see in the app. So I think hopefully anyone in the community who loves Selene Wallet and is afraid that we're going to inshitify, we will not, because I'll literally kill myself if we do. No, I'm just kidding. I won't. But
well, we're going to add plenty of, and it's all open source. We've said this before as well too. If anybody thinks we're doing anything wrong, fire up the code editor yourself, fork it, change the branding, and boom, you're off to the races. You know, we've already done quite a lot of the heavy lifting, and if you want a version without this, without that, or that adds Litecoin or whatever, then go do it. The code's all open source, no skin off our nose. But I think, yeah, we're doing a pretty good job of steering it in the right direction. Steve, what do you make of this new era of stats coming up for BCH and the community getting a bit more number focused, maybe?
Yeah, I love it. I've got to apologize to Kallisti on our little interview, a roundtable thing. He talked about the update, and I think there was an audio issue there, and it got clipped. So my apologies. I think most people can get the gist of what he was saying there when he was first introducing himself. I'm actually looking at the Explore tab right now in Selene, this is actually the first time I've clicked on the Explore tab awesome. Since you guys pulled it up.
First impression.
It's great. You know, what I've always liked about the wallet is that it runs light and it's very simple and easy to use. But having this feedback aspect is fantastic. I see the active users here. Is there a total wallet download number somewhere here that I'm missing, or?
Well, so no, like, we do have the numbers that come from the Apple and the Android store, right? But that's separate. That's not what this is. What it is every time you open Selene, it will send a hash of your device ID, which is, we're not screwing up your privacy, by the way, guys. There's no relation to anything else. It's just like a random number that Selene generates just for Selene on your device, so that we can make sure, you know, it's not just one person opening the app 10 million times, right? So individual devices with no identifying information check in on a 24-hour basis. Like, if you open the app and it's 10 a.m., then if you open the app again until the next day at some point past 10 a.m., it won't kind of register you again. And then we just add up all how many people have done that. So it's based on how many active mobile devices have Selene open within that period. And then, so if you go on the 1 year tab, whatever it's called, yearly, if you click on that, then that will show you sort of the total amount of people. So you can break it down on a daily basis, you know, weekly, monthly, yearly, and I guess we'll need to add an all-time thing, but we haven't even got out of our first year yet, so that's not really relevant.
This is exciting. I'll be anxious to watch that green bar grow.
That's right.
And
That's exactly. Yes, that's the point. And now you know about it. Like we were saying, Kallisti and I are waking up, looking at it. What's this number? Are we hitting a new all-time high? And the thinking is, obviously, we get the entire community of Selene users, of Bitcoin Cash users, thinking about that. And anybody can help us set a new record. All you have to do is onboard some more people using Selene Wallet, and that can virally kind of grow, right, as well. And like Kallisti mentioned, the idea is like we do these onboardings with people, right, where you send them a couple dollars and then maybe they never have a reason to really open it up again or do anything with it. So this is the first little taste. We've got some more stuff in the pipeline, but this is the first taste of, well, why would I even open the app if I don't have anyone to spend it with or any transactions that I need to make? If I have a reason to come back, then that puts BCH in my mind again. And then obviously as well, we'll also get onto being better about having maps or links to places that people can spend BCH, or content creators they can donate to and things like that. And then it will start generating actual transactions. But the step one is getting people who are completely new and on board with Selene a reason to be excited and interested in opening the app again.
I see 81 today, up about, looks like 30 to 40% compared to yesterday. What's your best day thus far?
It's today, 81.
Awesome.
You love to see it.
It's been climbing since I opened up in 5 minutes. It's been climbing.
Yeah.
Maybe people are downloading it right now.
Yeah, maybe listeners to the show are just checking in. What's the you can literally watch it in real time. It is incredibly fun like that. And I mentioned A Fifth of Gaming there. Everybody can also check that out if they go to afifthofgaming.com/stats. You can David's also put up some charts and graphs. If you're interested in this kind of thing, you can look into it. And I do encourage any other BCH projects in the space to consider. BCH Bull has done some good work with stats as well too. Like I think every project in the scene should, where possible, be trying to open source stats on their metric, and eventually either us or somebody else will come around to making a big dashboard of all of it, so that you can just see all the different projects growing at the same time. That would be so hype, but there's only so many hours in the day.
I can give a little bit of insight to our stats also, since it's not fully captured on that stats tab. So we estimate that we have somewhere between 1,200 and 1,600 total devices installed over both Android and iOS, based on the metrics that are available to us from the App Store and Play Store. And then so right now we are at 335 users counted by our Selene stats module for the whole year. That's only a fraction of what we think is total downloads. So it's nice. We can also see how many people have updated in a certain time, and we do see those waves of updates coming in, kind of trickling in. And I also have just a little bit of curiosity about, again, our efforts at the conference was a lot of publicity for Selene also. So that's probably part of why we're pushing this all-time high of users.
Yeah, amazing. And that's now that we've got it in there, that's the thing for us. It's going to get easier and easier because we just ship updates into the app. We make it more useful. We make it more engaging, and then it just will hopefully go just viral on its own, right? Or on its own, in quotation marks, like with the help of all our listeners and everybody in the BCH community talking about it and spreading it, right?
I can't hear Jeremy anymore. I'm not sure what happened.
I can. Can you hear me?
You can.
Yeah, I can hear you.
just you. All right, he might be back in a second, but in the meantime, let's crack on. That's enough Selene shilling for the day. So we got the VM Limits chip as well. Was on the last episode with Jason Dreisner, and we were talking about that. Already VM Limits was on the cards, but he now wants to do this upgrade, including bigger integers, which is quite important as a part of that. Can you hear me, mate? Give me the thumbs up if you can hear me. Nope. All right, Jet, maybe you can communicate with him via Telegram and try and sort that out. But anyway, after we did the discussion about VM limits, some people in the community seemed to be a bit confused as to what was actually the benefit of these bigger integers, or even just the VM limits in general. So I thought I'd just give a quick rundown of that to help people understand. So if you have the bigger integers, then it allows you to do faster, easier, and less buggy smart contract developing. So that's already just a huge benefit on its own. Obviously, anything you can do to make things faster and cheaper for developers will flow into us getting better and cooler apps faster, and that grows the whole ecosystem. But it can also add a little bit of scalability. I don't think this is a huge impact, but it's in there, where Jason was talking about once you have your small your smaller arithmetic, or like you can express the same maths in kind of fewer characters, then that obviously shrinks the size of the contracts that you need to make on the chain, which is cheaper and more efficient to transact with, but it also helps the scalability. You're getting more throughput on the same network, essentially. And then, like he mentioned in the show as well, it will be really helpful for zero confirmation escrows, which can improve the zero conf payment and security. So I'm loving that the BCH community is just really streaking ahead of all of its competitors. What do you make of all this, Steve? How are you feeling about the BCH upgrade for 2025, and specifically like the lock-in in November?
Trying to wrap my head around the conversation you and Jason were having was a bit maddening. you guys excel at making the plebs here in this space like myself feel really stupid, but it's essential, obviously, because this is how everything works and ties together and grows and pushes forward. So I'm nearly done listening to the podcast for the first time. I will be re-listening to it again and see if anything more sticks. And this just may be an issue of me not being willing to learn Greek at the end of the day, because you're just talking about shit that's just so far over my head that I'm very appreciative of people like you guys that are actually working under the hood here. But hey, if it's going to benefit BCH, thumbs up. That's all I got to say from one, at least my layman's perspective. It sounds like what Jason was saying gave me a lot of confidence, because he mentioned a few times in that podcast. What stood out to me is he said, we're in a good place. We're in a good place. And that gives me a lot of confidence, opposed to the opposite of that. We don't want to be in a bad place. So
yes.
To use a Trumpism, Jason Draisner is great. He's great.
He's great.
He's the best.
We've got a lot of great guys. So Jason Draisner, we've got a lot of the top developers. We've got them all in Bitcoin Cash. We've seen that they don't have any in BTC, but yeah.
Exactly.
They all come to Bitcoin Cash eventually. And we love them. We love them for it.
That's right. Nobody does it better. Nobody does it better.
Nobody does it better. Exactly. Nobody does it better than Jason. Yes. So my sort of, not apologies exactly, but my explanation to the listener that once Jason kind of gets going, I would like to be able to sort of walk through that and explain some of it. Maybe I should even do that. Maybe I could do a separate episode where I reviewed some clips from that and broke it down in a bit more detail to help people understand. But while we have him for the 2 hours, I just got to kind of let him rip with it, really.
I accepted the podcast as this is for the geeks that are building this. It's going to be geared toward them. If us laymen can glean any information from it, then that's awesome as well. But you got to create content for people that are actually working under the hood here, and I think it benefits them the most. And the rest of us just to get to reap the rewards at the end of the day by pushing buttons, which is awesome. So
yeah, well, it's quite important though, I think, that we show our working in that way as well, because like you said, even if you're not following all the specifics, you still have confidence that one, this stuff is getting thought through, it's getting reviewed, it's a good idea, there's an opportunity for feedback. Nothing is, you're not being like rugged with some update that you didn't know was coming, or didn't, that's a lot of what the whole chip process is designed to do. Like, obviously not everybody can be an expert in every single aspect of BCH, and even, the people who are very involved in the protocol, well, they're not going to be on the frontiers of onboarding people and so on and so forth, right? So everybody has their part to play, but a lot of where the process came from was realizing that people can deal with a lot if they see it coming ahead of time, they get good communication about it, they get time, the splits come, or social disagreement or upset or arguing, it comes from people feeling like they're being surprised with sudden changes, things that they haven't had time to review. Then one person gets upset, and then a lot of other people pile in who are like, yeah, they might have a point, and all of that. So it really is part of a broader strategy, I guess.
Okay,
yeah.
If one disenfranchised Blockstream employee can listen to podcasts like this, it's hitting the right target. And again, I was thinking while listening to the podcast, I was like, somebody needs to break down every point and explain it to the layman, but that seems like it would be an arduous task. Now, if you as the BCH Lorax, if you're the Lorax, you put on your Lorax hat and speak for the geeks and break it down for the layman, I think it would be very beneficial for those that want to understand more about how these things work under the hood. But I imagine that would be an arduous task. So.
Well, yeah, you just have to, the whole thing was like, it was already 2 hours of pretty nonstop. The informational bandwidth of Jason is just massive. So it would take a little while, but I would consider doing that. I don't know how much appetite there is for a 4-hour episode of me reviewing 2 hours of Jason Dreisner. But if people are interested, well, would you listen? You could be test user if I did.
Well, hell yeah, I'll listen to. I told you, I go to the gym 3 days a week. I got approximately 5.5 hours of BCH podcasts that I ingest, so I'll definitely listen to it. If nothing else, take some of the major points out of all of the podcast and say, here's what he's saying. This is what it means to the end user. This is what it means to development. This is what it means for the community. Tie it to something that people without a developer's understanding can actually relate to and ingest and use as talking points, when talking about this tech. So.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Kallisti, what do you make of it? I don't know if you've had time to check it out yet or what, but you might have more of an insight into the developer side of it as well too.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to check out the episode, but I definitely want to see what he's saying about it. I did catch up on the latest forum posts, though, just so I can see. I was asking the general earlier if General Protocols has like an official stance, and he said, no, there's been some changes, so, it's all irrelevant. Now we got to do a new statement. I was like, oh, okay, well, that means I should go check out what's going on. So I did that before the pod. So I actually did not realize that there was a new Big Int chip also. I'd already known about targeted limits, and I had heard while I was at the conference about the loops chip, but didn't know about Big Int. So I reviewed those. I'm still really pleased to see the progress on the targeted machine limits chip. The benchmarking that Jason is doing with Callan is really robust, and I'm glad to see that we're approaching this from an empirical and quantitative standpoint rather than how some of our competitors like to develop, where it's all just based on how the code makes you feel and how it's going to affect the social consensus. It's like, we don't care. We're just going to ship good tech and we're going to scrutinize it. So if it's not useful, I wouldn't want it, but this looks extremely useful. And the whole impetus for even getting the VM limits tuned was so that we can kind of relieve some of the real world limits that our real world developers are running into, such as like the Cauldron team. They're writing these complex contracts, or like Bitcoin Cash Autist himself also running into these limits. Matthew Gukin's running into these limits, right? So yeah, we do need to actually do this tuning. I'm very highly in support of the chip and the fact that it's being benchmarked so heavily. We're really trying to create the most pathological cases of what could go wrong with these scripts is really great. And the thing that stuck out to me the most when I was reviewing the latest from Jason on the Bitcoin Cash Research Forum is he says here, while we figured out the important constants and lock things down a bit more, I plan to continue building out benchmarks until we have a full combinatorial set of tests covering all opcodes and every evaluation mode of the more complex operations. To me, that is the biggest statement that I can see here on this forum, that means we're going to literally be able to take every single combination of opcodes and scripts that we can make and have a test suite to benchmark against. That means we can have a full evaluation of performance of every possible scenario from a performance standpoint in terms of like how the node is going to evaluate those. Yeah. So this is actual computer science. This is great. Like, people say computer science isn't a real science. They're stupid. This is science.
Yes, amazing. Okay, so I guess probably needs a little more time to work its way through the community and for everyone to evaluate it. And like Jason himself said, he's working on the, he won't know for sure whether he himself is, super confident on it by October. And so that is a little bit of a yellow flag. And I know he was saying, okay, look, we want to have it all ready and done in time. And of course, there is time for the community to look over it and review it. But I can see why it would make someone like Emergent Reasons, who's always going to be very both pragmatic, but also a little conservative on it. Like, let's really make sure we've done the work. Now, I'm sure he would also think if anybody's going to be able to do that amount of work and make it convincing, it would be Jason and Callan. But that still sort of remains to be seen. So we will be following that on the show as it moves on over the next couple of months. But I'm just very conscious that it's important for the whole community to, again, see it coming ahead of time, have plenty of time to review it and look into it themselves. That's what this is all about, having an open dialogue about that and having the community. And if anybody does have any serious credible complaints, of course, they're also welcome to come on the show and speak to that, or we can set something up where they can talk to Jason or what have you. But I'm sure there's also ways to float those concepts on Bitcoin Cash research and interact discussions in the Telegram groups and all that. So we'll see that coming ahead of time too. Okay, in the rest of crypto, things are progressing. We had this week Mira Hurley, the famous nano, I don't want to say pumper, the famous nano advocate on Twitter, has released a new ZeroConf BCH integration in their AI service called NanoGPT. So you can go to nano-GPT.com, so nano-GPT.com, and try out any of the AI models that people are using, ChatGPT and Claude and so forth. For anybody that wants to experiment on those, obviously those services are available separately, but the benefit of this is that you can try all the different ones in one interface, and also that you don't have to register or sign up or provide any information. It's like a pay-as-you-go type of credit system. Now, it was built to use Nano, but seeing that the BCH community is similarly ideologically aligned and very active, the team obviously decided to add BCH, which they've done, and it's actually a pretty cool integration. So I do recommend people to go on and try it. I've got to give one big caveat that everybody should know, is that when you deposit your BCH, it auto converts it into Nano, and there's no option to either convert it back or to withdraw it as BCH, which were the immediate features that I requested. So if you're depositing on there, I would, just don't deposit more than you're not willing to get back, and or you're going to have to hassle around with Nano and trying to convert that back to BCH if you get into that. So just be prudent with how much BCH you kind of send into it. But I thought it was a really good service. The BCH part of it works great. And it's also been amazing to see Mira and engage with the community about that. It got some good feedback. Other people have been trying it and using it. And I think this is what we're going to be seeing as well. Not only is better tooling and integration apps and so forth within the BCH ecosystem, but because things are going well, it's starting to bring in other people from other crypto communities who want to be a part of it. We've got a big pool of ideologically aligned and active real crypto users. So it makes sense to me that we're going to see more and more of this. Steve, what's your take?
Obviously, we talked about this a few times, Chris and I, at the conference of creating ripples. And I think you're starting to see ripples expand out from our community to other communities, which is awesome. The crypto is so tribal in many aspects, but at the end of the day, I think the vast majority of chain solutions and projects out there have a common goal. And being able to work together and focus on those common goals is fantastic. I can't take any umbrage of them not letting you get your BCH back. I mean, it's their project. They do whatever the hell they want with it once you deposit it. But just the fact that you've got some interoperability there is pretty cool. And I want to see more of that. Definitely. That's a win, in my opinion. That's positive for sure. Step in the right direction.
Really just goes to say, as we keep preaching products, and this is yet another cool killer use case for BCH and other aligned projects such as Nano. And yeah, I mean, it's a bummer we can't withdraw our BCH, but it's also totally understandable. Their platform was originally built on Nano. It's built by Nano Advocate. So it's like, I'm actually just really grateful that they were willing to try out Prompt.Cash as a payment gateway to power this. It works super smooth, super seamlessly. And I say it's a grade A product, you know. If we could withdraw BCH in the future, that would probably be my number one most requested feature too, but it's understandable why you don't. And you can always just go to a swap service such as Thor or 2SX or CX. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
like
anyway, anybody who's interested can check it out. nano-gpt.com. And yeah, certainly it's very interesting because it's a good forerunner, I think, as well too, of a lot of these crypto services in the future will be more like that. Micro payments, just deposit the credit you need, burn through your credit, deposit more if you need it. There's no credit card hassle. There's no sign up. There's no, you're going to be charged $20 a month and you forget to cancel it and then it turns into a disaster. It really is a fantastic example of hopefully the way crypto is going to be able to drive online commerce in the future. Okay, something else I wanted to touch on as well is the inflation starting again in Ethereum. Now, on this show, I'm sure I couldn't find it. I looked back through some previous episodes, but we talked about the Ethereum community being very excited about their burn, that they were going to be burning part of their transaction fees, and that would then make their coin deflationary because some of the coins were being burned off as part of regular network transactions. And there was a lot of noise and celebration in the Ethereum community, dunking on the BTC community mostly, or trying to shit talk them about, oh, we're more deflationary than you, and you think you're the hard money. Well, we're the ultra sound money. You're sound money, we're ultra sound money, because we're burning away all these coins. Now, the way they did that was that they have a sort of algorithm. So if a lot of transactions are happening on the network, then they start burning off the coins because they're burning more than they're inflating. But if there's not enough activity, then the burn is less than the inflation, and the total supply goes back to inflating. Now, over the last 2 months, and we've got some graphs here, you can see, so the burn was 2 years and 359 days. So I guess a little over 3 years since the burn kicked in, and the supply of ETH was rising even after they implemented the burn. But the big hope was that once they implemented the merge, which was 1 year and 318 days ago, so about 2 years ago, that it would, since they no longer had to support the miners and they had the switch to proof of stake, that they would then start to go deflationary, which they did until just the last couple of months, where the activity on the network seems to have quieted down a little bit and the inflation rate has increased again. So currently, Ethereum is inflating at 0.67% per year. And for BTC and also BCH, it's inflating at 0.833% per year. So Ethereum is only just under, and if nothing changes, which it likely will, but given the current numbers, at the next BTC or BCH halving in 2028, it would be less inflationary than Ethereum, despite all this hype about their burn. Now, I'm sure I explained on the show. I really couldn't find the clip though, so maybe I thought, look, let's just get it in here once to get it on record. But this was kind of somewhat inevitable, because what the Ethereum community didn't seem to realize is that the people who are paying to burn the coins is them. It's not like this money is coming from outside investors. The Ethereum community, by definition, are the ones transacting on the Ethereum network. So if they made their transaction fees essentially more expensive, like instead of paying $1, you paid $2 and $1 of it was burned, then it's just basic economics that eventually the community would realize, okay, we're paying $2 for a service that's now only sort of worth $1. So we could just do that on another network instead. And they've accelerated the rate at which people will find ways to shift to alternatives to avoid having to pay the burn to Ethereum. So the tax, such as it was of the burn, was only on their own community. So they haven't defeated economics and found a perpetual money machine, which it seemed like they thought they had. And they're now in the situation of being a little quiet. They've gone very quiet, let's put it that way, about their previously ultrasound money going inflationary. So we'll see how this plays out. Perhaps activity will pick up again and it will go deflationary, but it could just end up being inflationary in perpetuity. And or we could see the Ethereum community start talking about changing their monetary policy yet again, which they do every so often. So the whole ultrasound money thing is a bit of a sham in that sense. So I don't know. Do you have a take on this, Steve? This is kind of interesting watching these dynamics play out of the,
I have really just one thing to say. While you've been talking about this and showing the chart, I went to fees.wtf because it's been a while since I looked at this. And I've spent 2.94781 ETH in gas fees, which at today's price equals $9,773.11. So that's all I have to say about ETH right there, which is why I abandoned it years ago. I did play in the, as I told you on my conversion podcast with you, I did play in the L2 Polygon space for quite a while out of necessity. Because ETH is anything but easy and cheap to transact on. But if I ever decide to tiptoe back in there, I just pull up fees.wtf and remind myself of why I don't play in that space anymore.
Absolutely. Kallisti, any thoughts
and I'm by
on
no
this
means a whale. That's just, I'd say most people that have played in that space have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on gas fees alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Kallisti, any thoughts on this whole Ethereum burning ultrasound money meme they have going there?
I love memes, right? But again, they did not defeat economics, just like you said. So if it comes to, same with BTC versus BCH, right? If I have an option of doing the exact same thing, and on one hand, it's going to cost me $10 to do it, let's say, and on the other hand, it's going to cost me $1 to do it. Why would I spend $10 for the same thing? It does not make sense. We love to talk about incentives in crypto. The incentive is not there. Just wrap your head around it. It doesn't make sense. So I don't know what these guys were thinking when it came to we can even literally see it, but everyone's moving to L2s, right? L2 is the new L1. Polygon, what's the point of going back from Polygon to Ethereum if I can just do everything on Polygon? What's the point of doing or ever leaving Arbitrum if I just, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, I think low fees is the way we're here in BCH.
Well, I just think this is really important to highlight. We were going to do a segment a little while ago. We didn't get around to it just because there's so much to fit into the show, but about the ETH guys. Prior to this stuff with the inflation, they had already started talking about their stakers, and because of the way they'd set it up, I think not enough people were staking, I think it was too many people were staking, and so they were locking up too much of the ETH, because if the money is going to the stakers, then essentially if you don't lock up your money in stake, then you're being devalued, which is of course what all the Bitcoin people of any kind told them was an obvious ramification of this stupid policies that they put in. But no, that's fine. Anyway, they put it in and then discovered that was going to be a problem. And so then they were looking at, well, can we change that? Can we optimize? Can we tweak the numbers? So they're just endlessly trying to. Ethereum is just a system where it's always just a band-aid to fix the last band-aid, right? So that might be the same with this inflation stuff. If I had to guess, over the next year or 2 years, there'll be something else. And I think, I just think it's really instructive. And there was also a news story this week about one of the Ethereum layer 2s had kind of decided to go on its own at a certain point. Like they were just like, we're out. We're going to stop posting the transactions onto ETH, and we've just got our own community and our own apps. So we're just going to do it our own way. So L2s are really just somebody else's L1 in a certain way. So at a certain point, they just, once they get enough traction going on their own rocket ship, they just say, okay, we're going to leave the mothership. We're going to just go solo. And that means, you just end up with a diversified, fractured ecosystem and lose network effects. So this is all just to explain why the BCH strategy is yet again the best one. We're just got to wait a little while for it to play out.
And, a short devil's advocate, somebody's got to move fast and break things, right? So I personally don't want to move fast and break things when, my software is in charge of your money, but somebody else might be willing to do that, and we can learn from them. So, hey, there's at least that value.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's also why I'm highlighting it on this show. I think it's quite important for the BCH community. I think in general, obviously, people are in BCH because they like the BCH way of doing things. But we can certainly learn from keeping an eye on other communities. And I just thought this is just a classic case of it was so loud. All the Ethereum people were so loud when this burning was going on, and we're ultrasound, and what's his name, David from Bankless, King of the Midwits, he was celebrating, right? And I was just like, this is all going to go badly for you guys, or it's not going to work out the way you want, and here we are. So then suddenly the silence kicks in about that kind of stuff. All right, community comment of the week this week comes from Mike Komaranski, who put BCH logos on the sleeve of a Scottish professional soccer team I'm involved with. So we have a picture here. It's Spartans FC in Edinburgh in Scotland, who are I guess in the second tier or first tier, the below the national kind of tier. Did I spell that wrong? Edinburgh. Yeah, I did. Anyway, it's pronounced Edinburgh. I know that because I've been there. And he's got the nice BCH green logo on the left sleeve of presumably all the players there. So this just warmed my heart. Like, this is just quietly, the word is just getting out there. Crypto, BCH, getting in people's minds. Like Kallisti wearing the hat on the Fox News broadcast. All this marketing and advertising, it just adds up over time, right?
I see another cash stamp use case.
Yes. Hand him out at the stadium,
on the jerseys. I was wondering about that as far as doing some type of rolling evergreen stamp QR code. It would obviously be abused if it was constantly funded, but if it's something that you could sporadically fund, it's hard to do that with civil attacks and hackers that are looking for those weak points and avenues of attack. But I know there's a smarter person out there than I that could figure out a way to have a type of evergreen stamp out there. But sponsorship logos on jerseys like this, what better way to incentivize eyeballs than the guy walking around with money, on his jersey?
Scanning. Yeah. Wow. That is a super cool idea.
Steve, do you know about the Unspent app? If not, I'm not going to go into it, but I'm just wondering if you do.
No, I have on more than one occasion, I have tried to get through. Whoever designed that is clearly a creative and smart thinker. And I've tried to get through it. it doesn't come across super clear, so I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I've made multiple attempts at that site and trying to figure it out and understand it. So share whatever you have. I'm all ears.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that off the wire because I think it's out of scope for today's podcast. But or maybe Jeremy can have 2QX on sometime. I think maybe that'd be cool. But I just wanted to see it because it does kind of fill that niche a little bit. And then I also had a question for Jeremy, or maybe Jet knows if Roger still has that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. Is he still sponsoring that? And do you also know if I think there was like the Ukrainian soccer player was doing BCH stuff? Do we know if any of that is still active?
I want to say yes. I did follow. It was Hizam, whatever his name is, Hizam Rigo or something like that, who was the one of the guys that he sponsored, and he also sponsored Gordon Ryan for a bit, I think, in the MMA. And I have been following those guys on Instagram and just seen it here and there just to keep an eye on it. But I don't know for sure that that's still on. I wouldn't be surprised if it had kind of died off, right? But
I just opened Gordon Ryan's Instagram account. I don't see any Bitcoin Cash things. I will say that.
The money is dried up there.
There's some partial nudity, but
I think the Ukrainian tennis player, her name was Alexa something or other. And
Alexander,
now that I'm thinking about it, and if I recall correctly, I think she got burned by SLP before Cash tokens came out. So I now that I'm thinking about that, I don't think she's doing.
Well, they got a bit upset about. That's another story. But basically, Kim.com has been vocal on Twitter about the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, and somehow they became offended about Kim.com's thing. And then sort of said, we can't use BCH because Kim.com says whatever beef they had about the various political aspects of that, which I can understand because being Ukrainian, it's pretty close to home, right? But I sort of said, yeah, but that's like Kim.com. Like, he's not representing BCH. He's just representing himself. And it just so happens that he likes BCH. And then they said, yeah, but everybody associates BCH with Kim.com. I said, no, they don't. But anyway, that was their logic, that they had to quit BCH over their own beef with Kim.com about Russia and Ukraine tweets, completely unrelated to BCH. But, I was like, they're just, my opinion was clearly they just wanted to switch to something else, and they found that as their excuse. But anyway, I think they're still grinding away, and exactly. I just said, okay, well, hopefully BCH can do well enough to convince you back. But yeah, everybody's has their own reasons. Let's say it like that. Okay, meme of the week. We've got this one. This one did make me laugh. I guess they always do meme of the week, but this one comes from Dimitri in Romania at Back the Bunny, who said, "For DeFi to win, we just need to not lose. Persist. Our firepower isn't superior, but our motivation to build and fight is. Guerrilla wars fundamentally won by whoever refuses to quit." And then the meme is a photo of some sort of, I guess these were probably American soldiers, right, in Vietnam with the Vietnamese farmers who may or may not have been sort of Viet Cong, and it says, "The conventional army loses if it does not win." And then the guerrilla crossed out, so the DeFi farmer wins if he does not lose. So I think that really just sums up kind of the BCH experience too. Any kind of resistance force who are almost always outnumbered, outgunned, out-resourced, but they win just by sheer attrition and by fighting on their home turf, right? That gives them access to all the local stuff, and it also means that they literally cannot lose because it's win or die, like that's it. Whereas the invading army can always get a bit lazy, can always give up. They can always think, yeah, but at the end of the day, we just get on the planes back home, go see my wife, and they just don't have the heart to go the extra 10%, which is what ends up making the difference, right? It's the exact same with BCH. Doesn't matter if BTC has all the money, all the clout, Donald Trump. Doesn't matter. BCH is still here, and the narrative is still shifting in our favor. Why? Because the white paper is Bitcoin, the peer-to-peer electronic cash system. That's it. BCH is just fighting a home ground battle, so we're just grinding them out. I guess that's why I related to this. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I actually use this similar analogy. I'm a big two-way advocate. And whenever anybody ever says, well, you don't stand a chance against a governing standing army, and I say the Viet Cong would beg to differ. So, yeah, last man standing wins. It's a great meme and a good utilization of it. Proper analogy.
Yeah, I think one of the, I'm not too deep on all those, gun rights arguments, but I think it's funny that on one hand, people will say, we need to take away all the guns because they're dangerous and blah, blah. And then on the other hand, they say, but they're not really that effective. If they rolled out the tanks, you would get instantly wrecked. And it's kind of like, well, which is it, man? Are these not that bad and like not, needing ineffective or are they super dangerous and we need to get rid of them? Yeah.
It's a check on power. And if you're to the point where they're going to roll out tanks, then you've lost. It's over. We're talking about restructuring society. If they're going to drop bombs on their own citizens and roll out tanks, it's over at that point. We've got bigger problems. We need to be looking for shelter and bunkers to bug out to. But it's a check. There's something like 85 million gun owners in this country. That number's probably even way low. And each one of them has multiple guns. So it's a check on power, as it should be.
Absolutely. Yeah, Kallisti, what do you think, DeFi farmers?
Just piggyback on Steve, they always say they are more guns than people here in America.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I think this meme is really spot on. I'm really feeling it in terms of, what we do here in BCH. It does kind of feel a lot like guerrilla warfare. We just got to kind of hit and run and keep doing what we're doing and keep building what we want to build. And ultimately, you can't stop that snowball. It's but only if we succeed well enough that we do hit that critical mass, like we were just saying earlier in this podcast. Nothing is free. Really, nothing is free. And I don't necessarily agree with the idea of like, once they roll out tanks, it's over. I actually feel like that's almost like a win, because look at things like Tiananmen Square, right? They rolled out tanks and this one guy stood in front of it, and then the CCP decided, that looks really bad. And to this day, they still go, that looks really bad, and try to censor it off of history. So it's really, in my opinion, just a matter of if we keep fighting for the things that we find honorable and the things that we find virtuous, and they are actually honorable and virtuous, and we have the implementation and execution in place to make that a reality. Yeah, it seems like it's insurmountable, but persistence really is the key. Consistency is really the key, because if whatever you're opposing has these little holes in it, right? I think I even said this to Steve when we were at the conference, like doing all of this maneuvering in the conference and messing with the Wavlake board and trying to get on Fox News and literally all of that, to me feels like I'm Luke Skywalker trying to torpedo the Death Star. And that's how it is. Selene wallet is trying to torpedo the Death Star, right? Like that's exactly how I feel.
Yes. Yeah. No, it really is the case that, and I've been reflecting on that a little bit recently, right? Because it's just a case of exponentials, which is one of my favorite, concepts, things in the whole world, right? Is it doesn't matter, like, even if the BTC community have 100 or 1,000 or maybe even 10,000 times as much VC investment as we have, it doesn't matter because it's captured at the root. So Selene can be better than 10,000. Like, it doesn't matter if, we do one flip starter and, 100, whatever, $10 billion goes into BTC investment, we've still built a better product. So it's just like the orders of magnitude advantage that we have on those things is just so high. The same way that this show is only, reaching whatever, a couple thousand people probably per month at this point, and the whole crypto industry, like you're talking about, the tweets getting millions of views and whatever, but it doesn't matter because I'm reaching the most important ones and the most engaged ones in BCH, and that's, at some point we'll hit a critical mass and just scale up super quickly, and it'll just be a wipeout, right? So the truth speaks louder, and the better technology and so forth of the BCH community have just been grinding out these wins. That's why I'm so excited, as I always am, for the next upgrade, because every year we're just reliably, like clockwork, shipping some really key important upgrades, and that really is stacking up. So yeah, I think persistence is definitely paying off, and you can see that. Okay, message to the community. You guys know the drill. Kallisti, you're first up. Steve's been going first most of the time, so you're the one to give the message first.
Man, all right. What's today's message to the community? In the past, it's always been like, we got to keep our chin up. We got to get past the toxicity. But like, guys, I think we're actually winning. Or maybe not winning the war necessarily, but we are winning battle after battle, and that's for sure. And that's going to lead to winning the war. We can see it on the price charts already. We can see it in the sentiment. We can see it in the technical discussions. We can see it in just the way that people respond to us online and in real life, comparatively to a year ago, 2 years ago. We're making it. We're seriously making it. And everything that we're doing just keeps getting better. And now we're even coming up independently with the idea of we should be able to prove this with statistics and with metrics, right? So we're plugging away, getting all of this insight and saying, hey, like, we're the real deal. We might be small now, but we can show you exactly how big, exactly how small we are. And then we can use that information to just keep getting better. And we're going to keep getting better. Every year we love to say that next year is going to be a great year for BCH, and that's been true so far. 2025, guys, it's going to be the freaking year after the halving, and we all know what happens the year after the halving. And guess what? We're going to be positioned. We are positioned now, but we're only going to be better positioned to absorb all of that. We're going to have the best products. We're going to have the best people, and people are going to notice that. Really, one of our weakest points is just marketing, and we're working on that too. So just keep plugging away, guys. We got this.
Steve.
Bravo. Probably very similar to what I said the last time I was on your show, Jeremy. Don't pass up opportunities to talk to people about this and onboard merchants. I'm not talking about going into your local big box corporate chain and asking to speak to the manager about accepting Bitcoin Cash. I'm talking about the next time you get those delicious tacos from your favorite taco truck, ask them if they take crypto, and if they don't, onboard them. It's not, anybody can do this. Anyone. If you know how to work your Selene wallet, you can onboard somebody in less than 5 minutes. And if everybody does that, you're going to get the collective snowball is going to just keep growing and rolling faster downhill. If merchants realize this is an option and they have the opportunity to target a new demographic that they haven't been otherwise. If there's two taco trucks there and one of them takes BCH and the other doesn't, which one do you think I'm going to? You've got an edge here, especially with this in the early stage of this, where people are still early adopters in the scheme of things, relatively speaking, to go after a demographic that you're not currently targeting. And I'm talking to business owners out there. But as individual users, don't pass up the opportunity to just proselytize and talk about it. We don't, I guess, maybe we do. That quip of how do you know if somebody's a vegan? They'll tell you, immediately. So maybe we get lumped into that same category, but that's okay, because as I've said many times before, I don't think there's anything in the world, broadly speaking, that so negatively impacts all of us as fiat currency. And any little step we can get away from that is a move in the right direction. So don't pass up on the opportunity to talk to people about it. Your homework out there, if you're listening, is onboard a taco truck. Start there and go from there. It's really simple to do. Anybody that's selling anything, product or service, or you're buying something on Facebook, if you're buying something on Facebook Marketplace, will you take crypto? Will you take Bitcoin Cash? And just use those opportunities, and they're everywhere. Unless you're living in a cave someplace growing your own food, you're spending money on an ongoing basis. So use the opportunity to spend real money, hard money. That's my message to the community.
Yeah, Jet, do you have any thoughts? You've been pretty quiet over there. Nope, nothing. All right. And I want to, just add on to what both of you, I guess, have said. Kallisti's right. I think we're winning. It's night and day difference compared to a year ago or 2 years ago. And it's even hard to remember. I think if people could get in a time machine and go back to that, they would be like shocked. Like, what do you mean the amount of slander and hate and vitriol and dismissing? And what do you mean we didn't have any good wallets and the protocol stuff was still, getting worked out, and we didn't have cash tokens, and people were still worried about what if we don't scale, and what if the BCH podcast only had 500 YouTube subs, and blah, 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 on and on and on and on. Like, these things just all get better as a result of everybody working away on it every day, and it adds up so fast. But it's hard to really keep track of in hindsight. So yeah, for me, it's obvious that we're absolutely crushing it. I used to have to say on this show, like, don't worry, guys, it'll be obvious, but it's obvious now. It just is. And then as far as what Steve is saying, I think you should try and onboard people where you can, but my message is to be aware that it will be different for everyone. So I had a guy who I met recently. He was a German guy, and he was kind of interested in crypto. We got talking about it, and I told him about the podcast and everything. And I showed him Selene wallet, and I sent him some transactions, and he was, it took a little while for me to sort of walk him through it and explain it. And, he had all these questions about it. But then he was like, wait, this is actually pretty cool. And now we use Selene like regularly because we just do €1 bets on the result of different sports matches. It started with the Euros, right, because he's big on football, but now it's sort of turning into the Olympics and the elections and everything else. And that's just a case of he and I just have a little game going, and we obviously can just send the BCH back and forth, and it's just a cool way for us to stay in touch. And that's it. You've got another BCH user right there. And then maybe he'll start doing it up with his other mates as well, since it's so easy and we're having fun with it. So I'm sure everyone can have their own spin on it, their own flavor of, based on their own demographics or interests or whoever they're onboarding. But yeah, you can just talk to anybody, and before you know it, you'll have some BCH adoption. So okay, we got our supporter appreciation. Thank you to the donators. Thank you to our patrons, Ricky and HP. Thank you to our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. And the Flipstarter contributors, Majamalu Marcelo. Go to 2024.bcharg.com and get some tickets to Argentina. They are paid in BCH, by the way. The prices are listed in USD, but it will all be in BCH when you check out, if anybody's confused about that. Thanks to Molecular, Erdogan Talk, Turek, Emergent Reasons, Big V and the Bitcoin Cash Tokyo Gang, Peter McCormack, Brian Kanachi, Mini Satoshi, and Yeah Beer. The start guide, FAQ, and links are at www.bitcoincashpodcast.com. If you're new, listen to episode 85 and try Selene wallet at selene.cash. Shoutouts for the show, Kallisti.
Man, I want to shout out you. You've been doing a great job. I want to shout out Steve, because without him and Carl, I just would not have had anywhere near as much fun. Also, shout out to Joel Valenzuela and One Ultra Fresh, because hanging out with them was awesome, and also Robert Hirsch. Just all those people that I met at the conference and got to hang out with. It was a great time. JP, also, it was nice talking to you. Always got to give a shout out to my mom. I love you, Mom. I got to give a shout out to my girlfriend. I love you. And yeah, man, BCH community, you guys rock. Thanks for supporting me, and thanks for supporting us.
Awesome.
Steve.
Yeah, same. Got to echo Kallisti, all of the above. Really glad that you showed up, especially Kallisti. It was great hanging with you. And we got to get Kallisti to Argentina. We said that the last thing. He's on the fence there, I think, as well. So got to get him down to Buenos Aires for the conference.
I was looking at that. I'm thinking we're going to do that.
What's that?
Okay, good.
I was just looking into that before the pod. I think it will start.
Awesome. I want to give a shout out to David Hudman. If you guys, do you guys have access to Cracker Barrel? Yeah. Have you used that, Kallisti? Have you guys used that there?
Yeah, there's a Cracker Barrel in my city, and I have not used whatever the BCH technology is because I don't even know what it is. Like, nobody will tell me.
It's very simple. He's created a really cool tool. It's a middleman processor tool essentially, but it works really well. I took my family out to eat on it just a few months ago. So shout out to him. And I've actually spoken with David. I think he may still be listening. He was listening earlier. We're trying to work on finding other restaurants that have this QR code to pay technology, which is essentially what Cracker Barrel uses. And so shout out to him. If you want a meal, there's Cracker Barrels in almost every state in the lower 48 at least. So go get a meal at Cracker Barrel, spending your Bitcoin Cash. Shout out to the guys that are working on the Cash Stamps project for sure. I'm really excited for that and how it can potentially grow and the use cases that may come out of it. I really want to do some brainstorming there. Shout out to my buddy Philip, the Crypto Camo on Twitter. Badass artist. If you want anything AI generated or physically done, the guy is a really good artist. Glad he came out to the conference. His brother Grant Crawford, you were talking about betting earlier with your friend Jeremy. My friend Grant, we were sitting there waiting for Trump to come on, and some guy in front of him bet him that the guest surprise speaker was going to be Elon Musk. And Grant bet against him and won $100 for $100 right there because Elon didn't show up. So shout out to Grant there. And I just the BCH community in general. I am obviously on this channel the newest person here in this group of 4, and you guys have been very welcoming. It's been great, and I'm excited for what lies ahead. So keep building.
Amazing. And my shout out goes to, the two of you, because it's been a while since we've done a group episode. I always really enjoy that. Helps us to get sort of a more varied perspective on the show and a bit more kind of value to the listeners out of, their time investment. You're just seeing different points of view. Obviously, for getting involved in the BTC conference, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. Obviously, you have to take time out of your schedule and go there and be involved, but all those cool little elements that came out of it with the Fox News piece and handing out the cash stamps and all this stuff, it really just builds up, and those small little moments are what wins the war in the end. And I think, probably had a titanic impact, even if only just in the quiet ways of, how many people would have read on that board about BCH, like, what is that? Or just being surprised, like, wow, there's Bcashes here or something. It just makes an absolutely huge difference. All right. And our final send-off is going to come from the man himself, Donald Trump, with his very memeable outro on his final words to the Bitcoin community as he was wrapping up his speech, which was widely memed on Twitter and will maybe become a bit of an enduring crypto meme. So thank you very much for listening. Until next time, take it away, Donald.
Thank you all. Have a good time with your Bitcoin and your crypto and everything else that you're playing with. Thank you all. Have a good time with your Bitcoin and...
They can't fuck with my gang. Got cash in the left and the right hand. They run Ponzi, they run scams. They're not like us and we don't like Manda. We achieve more in a short time span. Less is more and it's all by plan. When I draw for the war chest, they have all plans. Of course, we a small team, but we all bang and we ride for the cause. Riding for mine like I'm riding for yours. Keeping it righteous to ride for the applause. All they do is tell lies and shy, so it's wartime. More time walking with a rifle and sword. Cause we freedom fighters, 007, but don't need no license. They ain't got honors and degrees, just websites. Don't sign up before you read that fine print. Who the fuck ever told told these clowns it was over. I roll with the mind of a soldier. By my composure, poses. Try to oppose wave sticks like I'm a composer. Slides with the told you won't get spun like a CDJ. Boy, better know like BBK. What I keep in this piece ain't BB. Pellets get low when you see me spray. BBL, you can see their fate. See these L's when you see this face. Cause we upgraded and upstage, and so when they get the next updates, it'll be too late. They ain't got the tech that we got, the techers we got, or intellect to keep pace. We let them rest in peace, we're the best to speak of, no less. They don't really wanna play no games. Who we playing is BCH play. They don't really wanna say our name. Who we saying is BCH play. Do you wanna keep it real or fake? Who we saying is BCH play. Who we really wanna hear you say? Who we playing is BCH play. They don't really